Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mike in the Asylum with your hosts, Sydney Cisneros.
Jesse Neto.
Liam Grant.
And Ron Van Busker.
Join us tonight as we talk about some of our favorite horror movies. And tonight's very special Halloween special, we are going to be talking about a personal favorite of all of ours, Trick or Treat.
Yes.
I like the hard R there.
Well, because you got it. Because I found out the hard way, there is actually another movie called Trick or Treat. And every time I tried looking for this movie before I found the difference out, I was getting really pissed off and confused.
You know, it's hard to text people about this movie because it autocorrects the
Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
And normally this wouldn't be a problem, but it is a problem. It kind of upsets me that it is one. But oh well.
So hopefully you all watched the right movie out
Trick
there.
R.
I think this is
Treat.
probably the more famous one, so
It
we
is.
should be good.
It is. The other one looks like B movie garbage.
If it reminds you of
I may
X2,
have seen
you're
it,
probably
too.
watching the right one.
Yes, because it is actually directed by the same guy that I can't remember the
I
name.
actually think I've
Mike-
watched Trick or Treat.
Oh God.
Anyway,
Okay,
this
so-
was I think Ron suggested it.
Yeah.
Right. So I will hand it off to him, and he'll give us a little bit of trivia to start out with. So.
Okay, all right. This movie. Oh, it's Michael.
It's
Daughtry.
Michael Daughtry and Brian Singer.
Okay.
But
I didn't know Bryan Singer was
the
involved.
writer and director goes to Michael. Brian just helped produce it.
Okay.
But that
Okay.
being said, Brian probably helps with some stuff.
There
too.
you are. So it's a 2007 movie, Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat.
Trick or
R
Treat.
Treat. Trick
R.
or Treat. And there's a
TT.
pirate. There's actually a pirate in this movie, so it
Yes.
makes sense. No,
Did you hear what happened to Roger the pirate?
No.
He went to an R-rated movie
Oh.
and then got scurvy.
Oh.
I'm gonna send Sam after you.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Oh, my.
Okay, so this is a really good anthology horror movie.
Which is very rare.
Yes.
But that's actually the thing, though, is I actually love anthology movies, even the really bad ones. You know, I'll watch.
See,
Like-
that's me too.
Also, I'm more likely to watch a horror movie if it's an anthology.
I will too, and then I'll regret it afterwards.
All right. So, what do you think of Body Bags?
I don't think I've seen that one.
I'm loaning
Judge,
that to
it's
you.
John.
Next movie
Oh, yeah,
next.
it's John Carpenter's.
Oh.
I showed
yeah.
it to
How
him
the
last
Fuck did I
year.
know
Well,
that?
no, okay, we're gonna go on a tangent a little bit.
Yeah.
'Cause I have to tell Jesse about it. So it is straight up an anthology movie with like your Crypt Keeper ex-host, who's
Yeah.
actually played by John Carpenter.
That's
Oh.
awesome.
He's in the morgue.
He's just
Oh.
walking around the morgue, being like, "Hey, do you see this gross ass corpse? Well, here's how it happened.
Yeah.
You'd like it."
Oh my
That
God, I
sounds
need to
really
watch this
cool.
now. Back to Trick or Treat.
Okay, so Trick or Treat, yes, it is. But this is like one of the best anthology sort of movies because it zigs and zags through each story. It's like 5 stories, but they all connect some way or another.
And there's no storytelling device. There's no person who's like, "Here, let me tell you the story about Halloween in this town," or there's not like some guy in a morgue pointing at stuff, being like, "This is what happens." It's all interwoven together so perfectly, and it feels like you're reading a comic book, which is obviously what they're really heavily inspired by.
So
Well,
de-
they were talking about trying to make the comic book and releasing it like with the
That'd be so
movie,
awesome.
kind of like how they did with like Kick Ass.
Oh, just seeing all the covers at the beginning and the opening, it kind of made me want it.
Yeah, right.
And also, we were talking about this earlier. This movie is now 11 years old, and it aged very well. Like it looks like it could have came out this year, and it's still
Because of those
holds up.
practical
Yeah,
effects.
let's say, guess what? Practical effects make your movie age really well.
Yes.
News flash, practical effects are the best effects.
Even if they don't, they still kind of do.
So since we are already like jumping on like our first impressions, I'll go ahead and have Sid tell about his impression of this movie.
I do really like this movie quite a bit. I'm usually not a very big holiday person, but Halloween, it's one of my favorites. It's one of the few that I'll actually celebrate every year. And I'll carve a jack-o'-lantern. I'll do all the cheesy stuff, carve a jack-o'-lantern. I'll make a costume for Halloween. Kind of go all out. This movie kind of fills me with the same feeling that I assume other people feel when they watch like Rudolph or Frosty the Snowman or any of those old classic Christmas movies.
Joy.
Yeah, whatever Liam said.
What's that feeling?
That
What's that
thing.
feeling?
But
The Jennifer Lawrence movie?
the Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh,
dude,
it's-
that's
God
terrible.
damn
I
it.
should have said that. But anyway, it's just like it's weird saying it about this movie, especially some of the stuff that happens in it. But it's such a great feel-good holiday movie.
It's wholesome.
It's
in a
wholesome
Halloween way.
in a very Halloween way. So I'll pow and pass it off to Jesse.
So the first time I watched this, I think I was just scrolling through Netflix like one October night, and I was just like, "Oh, this looks Halloweeny," and so I watched it. And for me, this movie is synonymous with the holiday, like even more so
Yeah.
than Halloween,
Yeah.
because Halloween doesn't look
I
very
totally-
Halloweeny.
I
Like there
totally
aren't
agree.
really jack-o'-lanterns, nothing's very orange. But this movie is just like bleeding
In
it
your
over
face.
every frame. Like it's like a drug, just intoxicating you on the spirit of
Over
goodness.
the top. Like, there's an absurd amount of jack-o'-lanterns all over the street.
And that just like shoots this movie high into my ranks for me. So yeah, that's my feelings. Liam.
Oh, hello. So, this movie, enjoy it immensely. Super good. Love all the characters, especially like the principal and Sam and Mr. Krieg. But we'll talk more about them later on. Just like, I recommend watching this with a bunch of friends.
Forgot Lori. I cannot believe I forgot Lori.
Do you, okay, my bad. Don't you mean Rogue?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Shut your whore mouth.
What are you talking about?
That's not my rogue.
That's not my Rogue.
Who is your rogue?
Anybody but her.
I don't know jack shit about the
Okay.
Red movies, so.
Or Snooki from or whatever from
Watch-
what is it? True Blood.
God. Okay, she's fine. Okay.
Alright.
Little tiny rant. Never mind. It's entirely off topic. Continue.
We'll
Alright.
probably get back to that later.
Yeah, no
Especially when
problem.
we bring her up again.
Yeah.
Really love this movie and I'll gladly watch it, back to back to back. I pass it on to Ron.
Of course, this was my pick, so I absolutely loved it. It is a movie that it's a staple for me to watch every Halloween. Like, normally it's on Halloween night, or if not sooner, like now. I'll probably even watch it again before Halloween. That's how much I love this movie. It's just, it just worked very well. Like, I do, kind of like Sid said, anthologies, like even the cheesy ones, the crappy ones or whatever, I gravitated towards them because I grew up watching like Tales from the Crypt and all those like,
Fucking love
yeah,
Tales from the Hood.
Tales from the Hood, yeah, like all these things. But what makes this one stand out, of course, is because they're all interlocked. Their stories interlocked with other stories throughout the whole thing. So it's not just like short story and that's it, and we go on to the next one.
And it does it in a really organic way that makes this feel like a real town, whereas other movies it sometimes feels kind of shoehorned in.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, like I said, it's like, because they kind of spans over the whole length of this town. Like you're seeing different neighborhoods, different spots in the city, and really, I fucking love this movie.
Yeah. So I guess that's all our thing. No.
Get into a little
So-
summary here.
So yes, our story, of course, starts.
Spoilers as always.
Oh
as
yeah,
always.
spoilers.
as always.
Yeah.
Go see it.
Go see it.
Go see it.
fucking
Hopefully
great.
you've
It's a
already
great
watched
movie.
it.
Pause the podcast right now and watch it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, welcome back.
Okay. All right. So it is Halloween night. This whole movie takes place on Halloween night, and
The
it is
Festival
in-
of Samhain.
Yes.
All
And it-
Hallows Eve, which is my
And
personal
it
favorite.
is Warren Valley, Ohio.
Warren Valley, Ohio. The totally real town.
Yes.
Not
Jumbo
Haddonfield,
of
Illinois.
cultures.
Yeah.
Not Erie, Indiana.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it was an old TV show. Look it up. You'll
So
like it.
of course, with this type of movie where they zig and zag through story after story, we're gonna try our best to not lose you. If you guys already watched the movie, you should maybe even pick up more after listening to this podcast. But our first story starts with we see two couple coming home.
A robot and like a space cowboy.
Yep.
So,
And-
I like to call her Ro Bitch.
Okay, yeah, and you'll see why.
Yeah,
because
he's a character.
of course, right when they get home, she immediately wants to she wants to take all the Halloween decorations.
You can
down.
tell it's really obvious she's in a bad mood for whatever reason.
She's the Scrooge of Halloween.
Well, being in a robot, that kind of big chunky robot costume didn't help.
Oh, dude, it'd be so much fun. You get to fuck with
It
people
is
all
fun,
day.
but then for hours.
So-
it's-
Yeah, you get to fuck with people for hours.
and by the way, her name is Emma. Just so we have all the names of all the
Yeah,
people.
Ron wrote them all down.
Yes.
But be prepared for a lot of that guy and that girl.
Yeah.
Robo
So,
chick.
so we have,
Or Ro Bitch.
So-
I don't know.
so of course it's Emma and Henry. And Henry, of course, absolutely loves this holiday. You can tell he's like pro Halloween. He over decorates his yard every year, probably.
Some of the
I mean,
coolest Halloween decorations
yeah,
I've seen.
I
I
was-
want to do that. They're like these big wooden crosses with
Sheets
Which
on them.
I'm glad
with
you
well,
talked about
sheets
this.
on them,
Yep.
but not just the sheets. They also have like a big bundle of hay where the head would go, and they're like this legitimately creepy. They look like horror movie.
Like a bunch of hanging limbs too
Yeah,
that
like-
are like bleeding and have a good effect.
It's great,
Oh,
which
yeah.
has a great callback to a little bit later on. But keep going.
So of course, Henry wants to go and like just go to bed. Go,
Well-
like end up like getting a little freaky with his wife.
First, he says when she's trying to like blow out the jack-o'-lantern,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
like, "Oh, it's
Yeah.
tradition," and
Yeah.
she's like, "It's not Hanukkah."
It's not Hanukkah. They did
And it's like,
tradition.
and that's what sealed her doom.
Yep.
Well, that and also taking down. You don't take
Right.
down decorations. So yeah, like you said, blowing out the candle. You don't blow out the jack-o'-lantern. You let it go out pretty
It-
much organically.
It kind
on
of
that
reminds me of when someone takes down Christmas decorations on Christmas.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
crazy.
most depressing thing ever.
Everyone
It
knows.
It's usually
Santa comes and kills you.
Well, see,
Santa,
I'm
yeah, Santa
see,
will.
Growing up in a small hick town, I'm a little, by my opinion on that's a little warped, considering how many houses had Christmas decorations up all year round. So,
Oh God.
yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
so as Ron said,
So of course, Henry wanted to just pretty much have a relaxing moan session with his. I don't know with his wife.
bone
session.
session.
Bone
Yeah,
session.
because
Let's
it's
do-
Halloween, Ron.
I guess we're moaning
It's
and moaning.
Spooktober.
'Cause
You
he said,
gotta get the
'cause he
bone
said, get the
session.
nature tape, and he got the nature tape.
And evidently his nature tape was porn.
Yep.
so,
I-
So I
so-
I was talking to Jesse about it. And he actually knew what video they were watching.
and of
Wait,
course,
what?
And of course,
David Sidney.
we see Emma going about her humbug way and taking down all the decorations, and then we also see someone looking.
With the spooky mask.
Yeah,
With
you
the
get
spooky
a point of view. It looks like there's like a weird filter or something.
It's like
It was
So we're still going.
No, we're still recording.
Okay.
Oh, that's
hello.
close.
It was like The Strangers, and I don't know what came first.
Okay.
I think this movie. Did.
Okay.
I feel like The Strangers is like after 2010.
Take that, strangers.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Okay.
If not, we're sorry, strangers.
I'm sorry. I love you. Take me back.
Don't
No,
fact check
actually,
that.
Strangers came first.
Shit.
Strangers,
05.
Strangers came around Silent Hill.
Oh damn.
Yeah,
Damn, that's old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I used to watch Smallville
Oh,
on
of course.
CW all
Anyway,
the time.
the
That's
creep-
how I remember.
the
Thank
creep-
you, Superman.
The creepy dude is a fake out. He's just waiting for his buddies in a car, and she's all like
Oh,
takes a
that's
sigh of
wrong.
relief. What?
Wrong. This one came first.
Ha!
08.
What?
08.
Oh wait.
And
Oh,
a
but go
year-
fuck yourself,
a
Liam.
year later. They're
No,
actually probably in development.
No,
at the
because
same
it
time.
released at 2009.
Which one? This one?
Trick or Treat. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
no, okay,
but
no,
it
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
this was
released-
made first.
Yeah, but that's what we were trying to say. They came first. They filmed that first. So.
Yeah, but which one released first?
It doesn't matter.
It's like Tortoise
Anyway.
and the Hare,
Anyway,
Ron.
So yeah, no, a
Alright.
great little fake out scare. You see a guy with a creepy white mask wearing a hoodie. It's probably actually one of my favorite moments. This is what made me love this movie. Made me realize it wasn't going to be like
then, of
most other stuff.
Of course, she could feel eyes on her, so she's like just watching this man stare.
You,
at her.
you
Or-
creepy,
They're-
bruh?
So, and then all of a sudden, a car pulls up, and you realize it
He
was
takes off the
just-
mask, just some shitty teenager.
Yeah. So, but those weren't probably the eyes she felt.
Nope.
There was something else.
Because
lurking over
something
there.
that we see point of view shot of something scuttling around in
Yeah.
the dark.
A little thing.
Yep.
A little critter. and of
Danny
My
course,
favorite.
DeVito?
of course,
Close. Actually,
oh,
surprisingly close.
let's see. So pretty much like she was pretty much like taking down these like sheets off this the ghost thing.
And you think it's the way they shoot it, you think something's gonna be in the sheet.
And there
Like, that's what
never
you
is.
expect.
There
Yeah.
never is. The first time I watched it, that actually got me. Every time she pulled enough sheet, I thought something was going to happen.
Jump out or something. But as she was pulling a sheet down, it like this thing jumped up out of a box.
Covered in a sheet.
Covered in a sheet.
And
And
we're,
it's
and
all
we're
like,
gonna find out
"No."
that this guy, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's Sam.
Who is
Sam.
adorable.
Oh,
Like-
he's the best.
I wanna give him a
want
hug.
him to be more popular. I would hang out with Sam.
I would too.
Yeah, but Sam is pretty much the spirit of Halloween, and we'll find out
He
more
is
about
the
it.
cutest spirit of
Yeah.
any holiday.
Like, I mean, like we have like Santa
Who's an
Claus for
adorable little murderer?
Christmas, leprechauns for St. Patty's Day, and we have Sam for Halloween. Like we needed this. We
Yep.
needed this person.
Anyway, so you get
So-
this really great shot where like this is all shot from the outside, but like the sheet envelops her. There's a lot of scuffling,
Yeah, scuffling.
screaming, as she's stumbling around, and she falls over outside the gate. And you see these kids. These kids here, they don't know what's going on. They just see this weird sheet screaming and wobbling around. And all of a sudden you get this great shot where all of a sudden you hear this horrible noise and the sheet just starts to turn red.
Yep.
Like it's actually
You just see a spray,
a really cool bit. And then the
So-
kids scream and run away.
and then she stops screaming and
It
falls
has
down.
one of my favorite murder weapons,
Oh, yeah.
which
Well,
is up.
We'll get to that like a little bit later, unless you want to drop it.
No,
now.
well, I was gonna say that's fine.
Well,
Go ahead.
it
It's,
was like they showed it at the beginning.
yeah.
too.
Oh, shoot, I
Yeah,
guess they
it
did.
is.
Yeah, it was just like one of the things that
It's a
tied
signature.
together.
It's a Sam's signature weapon.
Yeah,
pretty much.
it's like a bitten into a lollipop, making
Jack
like
Lantern one.
Yeah.
So
friggin'
It's really
adorable.
cool when you have the DVD.
So
That's
pretty
what
much-
the DVD is.
yeah, it's super good.
so pretty much after all that scuffle and stuff, we go back to inside where Henry fell asleep waiting for his wife, and he's like trying to figure out where's she at. So he
Oh
goes
no,
to
because you get a little bit
Oh,
before
yeah.
where he hears screaming and he wakes up and he looks up and he sees
Oh,
the tape is
I
still
guess-
going.
yeah.
So he's like, oh yeah. Then he falls back asleep.
Yeah, and then okay, well, moving on with Henry going outside to he's trying to investigate like where's my wife? You know, like it's been a while.
And there's this super awesome shot as he's walking out of the house where there were dangling limbs that we mentioned before.
Mhm.
Only this time it's out of focus, but you can see on one of those dangling limbs is a little bit of a shine, a little bit of a flicker. And you're like, oh no. But it never really focuses on
never
that
even-
until,
I
yep.
didn't even notice that.
It never really focuses on it till later because it's out of
View.
yeah.
And so he's of course going and he notices one of the ghost things that was still propped up.
It's all lit up.
But the thing is the sheet was red and
Yep.
bloody. So like he's like, what's going on? So of course, like any other person. go
My
ahead.
favorite thing is before he does that thing that
Uh-huh.
I think you're about to say,
Uh-huh.
he trips over a box, and in
Oh,
the
yeah.
box he realizes all of the Halloween limb decorations are in there, and then he looks back up at the tree and notices they're dripping.
I do now.
There's a
remember
lot
that.
of subtle things
Yes,
about this
very
movie, which you
subtle.
wouldn't
About this movie.
expect.
Especially for a horror movie that came out in 2007, it's
Mhm.
really subtle.
Well, and from what I've saw in the commentary stuff or whatever, he wrote and rewrote. Like this has
He
been
said
like,
this was like his first
yeah.
script he wrote out of like film school.
Th-
Yeah.
This feels like a passion project.
Yeah, it
too.
was
like
very-
a lot of time went into it and effort.
And
Well,
so
He was Michael made Trick or Treat Season's Greetings, which was dated in 1996, which was like this little short film.
Which I would recommend
Here.
checking out. I think it's available on YouTube and it's only like 2 minutes long. It's worth a shot.
yeah, but going back, Henry of course pulls down the sheet and it reveals his decapitated wife's head on the the ghost.
And then
whatever.
everything else that was left behind
And then, of
wrapped
course,
around it.
And of course, jabbed into her mouth is the
lollipop.
The lollipop. So,
Respect Halloween.
yes,
Yeah.
you respect it. Heed his see this warning.
That makes me think of the Captain Planet stuff. Remember to recycle those water bottles, or I'll turn you into a fucking tree. Captain Planet,
Shit.
motherfucker.
So then we cut into a nice little credit segment,
Yeah.
which is intercut with like comic strips.
Yeah, like
and-
comic strips and comic book covers that look legit. When I first watched it, I thought this was a long-running comic series.
if the storyboards for this movie weren't comics, I would be very surprised. I mean, I
Okay.
guess that's what storyboards are, but you know what I mean.
So pretty much after that whole thing, we get to see the next scene is the downtown Halloween party.
Why
that's
don't
going
our
on.
towns throw
I
awesome
know,
Halloween
and it,
parties?
like
that's
it's
why-
like everybody in the town shows up,
Yeah,
and they're all
this town,
dressed.
that is one thing. Is I think the person on the news does specify that this town is particularly weird about Halloween.
Let's go to this town.
This sounds
I
great.
wanna move
Well,
there.
Every time I watch like a Halloween-esque movie like this, or even like children's movies like Hocus Pocus, I'm always super upset that I don't live in a town that's as crazy about Halloween as these places. Like this, every small town I grew up in, every small Kansas town is always like, no, we're actually thinking of not doing the trick or treating this year. It's like, motherfucker.
Do you know a sad thing about my town in Kansas? We didn't even have all of Main Street set for Halloween.
Had 3
It-
houses.
no, it was like a quarter. So like we had the post office and the bar.
Okay, I guess I got off better than you two because I didn't have like a parade down Main Street, but we did have basically like citywide, like pretty much every single house did it, and there was even that haunted house that all the kids know about, and all the kids have their own stories
And it
about.
was
So
like,
that was
we,
great.
we never missed it, but there was like talks almost every year. It's like, well, we're thinking, it's dangerous.
And I
to
never-
be outside. It's like, oh god damn it.
Are you still talking about Roswell?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was when I was a kid. So
Oh, okay. Because
Like, what is it like now?
last year it was kind of smaller.
okay, fuck Rossville now, but
Fuck
back
yeah,
when I was a
Rossville.
wee lad,
Because it was like I was walking
like
around
4
with
years
like my
before you.
oh yeah like 4 years before like
I was your age.
like I was like walking around Main Street with my little sister and she wanted to go through the on house which was at the Legion so
That's not
Yeah.
the one I was thinking of. The one I'm thinking of doesn't exist anymore.
the one I know is dead.
Main thing I grew up doing was I lived in like kind of I lived in a townhouse and we had like townhouses around us, and then like the office would always make a haunted house, and then we would go through that and trick or treat through that way. Just kid memories.
Nice.
Getting back to the story, of course, yeah, down in town, we end up pretty much the camera pans to a kid running into a Halloween boutique store where we see a group of girls trying on pretty much sexy fairy tale.
And we see them trying it on.
Yeah.
This is this kind of movie.
So we get to see these girls and listen to what they're saying.
Having a very racy conversation.
Yeah.
Like some mother like knocks on the door and is like, "There are children
There
in
are
here."
children
Oh, and
present.
a little Easter egg: the kid that's looking into the peephole at the girls was actually Sam, out of costume. It was
Oh.
the same actor. Not
Nice.
it's
Yeah.
not Sam. Don't get that
Right,
confused,
right.
But
Yeah.
The same actor.
yeah.
Quinn Lord.
there you are.
Yeah.
So we get to hear stuff like they're all talking, and it's very sexual talk. Like
This is like a tradition of theirs. Every Halloween, they go to a different town, usually in the country. I assume it's like a big road trip. And they go out there, they go to a party, they hook up with a guy, and then they move on.
And tonight is Laurie's first time.
First time
Yeah.
being part of this.
Because all three of them step out of their little cubicles and they're all like, "Oh yeah, check it out." But then Laurie is staying inside, and
She's all nervous and
her sister's all like, "Come on out, it's
there-
gonna be
there-
fine."
And there's some talk about like fresh meat and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, they make when
Like-
she's trying to get her sister out of there, she's like, "I'll huff and I'll puff," and you're
Oh,
and
yeah.
like watching
Yeah.
it again, you're like, "Oh."
which is great because she comes dressed up just like Red Riding, Red Riding Hood.
Rabbit. What?
Subversion.
Okay. Yeah.
Dressed out like White Rabbit.
Yeah, 'cause they all like are like sexy fairy tale
Well, Snow White, Cinderella, and Bo Peep.
Bo Peep, yeah.
Bo Peep.
So
Hey, as long as I'm not the only one.
of course, yeah.
Okay, no, I would read a book. Sorry. I would read a book called
Before-
Bo Peep.
Actually, before Lori is the one who's like new to all this.
Yes.
She's hesitant about coming
Yep.
out of the dressing room. Like she's not feeling comfortable in this whole scenario. Like so something's wrong. Like you can definitely tell she's like a virgin to this.
Yeah, the entire feng shui of this part of the story is trying to give that vibe of like,
Yeah.
oh, they're trying to get her laid. This is her first time. It's a rite of passage, and it is.
It is.
And
All of
it's-
those things.
And
Also-
it's super hard after graduating Charles
And the-
Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters.
And this is
Anyway.
Yeah.
and this will also reflect throughout this movie. But Halloween is you're supposed to dress as your opposite. So pretty much like what you're on the inside, you try to do the opposite. on
I've
the
been doing it
outside.
wrong this
So
whole time.
yeah.
No, really, it's just that for me, honestly, it's more like, what did I want to dress up?
I was
that
gonna
can
say for
never
me, it
do
was
for
like
the rest
letting
of
out the
year?
inner freak and not having to hide.
Well, I mean, but you
Yeah.
guys know where I'm going with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, but in
It's
But-
also sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you again, but
Go ahead.
Jesse
No, you're
mentioned that at least the way he worded it made it sound like they were all sisters. I don't think that's true.
No. I
Definitely
just
not.
meant
There's-
the woman dressed as Cinderella was her sister.
Oh, you meant
Yeah.
sisters as an apostrophe S, not.
I don't think I said sisters. I was specifically saying
Anyway.
sister.
Sorry, I misheard
Oh.
you. Sorry, because that's going to feed into a point I have later on. So
And
Anyway.
then of course, like she's saying stuff like, like she's real nervous, and she's like, "I want my first time to be special."
and they laugh at her about that.
Yeah, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, Lori. kind of
And it's
stuff.
not that hard
And it's
because
not
the
that-
three
yeah.
of them go off and like find their pairs.
Yeah, and see, and like, yeah, and from what we see, we see them pretty much being a pro. Like they'll just they see news people downtown, doing this thing. They're like, hey, you two, come be our dates.
Yep.
And then the guy who's ringing them up, their costumes up and stuff. He's like, hey, you not busy? Come on through. And like, of course, they're gorgeous women.
I
They're
I
all
like
right.
to point out I like to point out how he thought he was gonna get out of work in 20 minutes, even though it was a costume shop.
On
What the
Halloween.
hell are all those people doing buying their costumes
Costume
the
last
day
minute,
of?
I know.
You know, it's,
Pansies.
it's like the people who go to
I'm ready
the
now.
stores
There
to
was
buy
pretty good
Christmas
costumes
presents.
left.
I'm ready any
Just
day
like-
of the year.
Those
So,
are rookie numbers. You need to bring those numbers
So
up.
of course, we see the girls leave the boutique, and then they end up walking and bumping into Emma and Henry. So we know that the timeline isn't like
Is
continuing.
skewed.
So it's kind of like we know that it was earlier in the night where they were down at the party. So
Yep.
it was before Emma was murdered.
It does a Pulp Fiction. with
And this is just a little moment for the audience because of the way this movie is structured. It's going to be we're not going to
That's
be able
what
to
I'm
go
saying.
through this like step by step by step. It's like we'll try to chunk
And
these
that's
things sort
and
of.
That's why I'm trying to like say, hey, this person popped into the
Right.
scene,
But-
or, to kind of give them.
But not the whole story because we've been going really hard on these like four girls right here. But like the climax of their story happens later, so
Yeah.
I assume we'll get to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because what happens after this is we are introduced to the kid with a sack, right?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that fucker.
we also okay. So elsewhere in town, we see a fat kid strolling down the street, knocking every jack o' lantern
What
he's seen.
a dick!
He's not even wearing a costume.
It's
He's
just-
wearing one of those stupid T-shirts with the quote unquote funny saying you see kids wear.
I'd be so mad if someone broke
the
my comfort
T-shirt
zone.
says
That
this is my Halloween costume.
Yeah,
Oh,
well
Yeah.
that's what it says, but it reminds me of like you see kids walking around with like a shirt that
Yeah.
says something like loading
You get
sarcastic
no
comment.
candy.
Oh,
if you
yeah,
come up
I
to
know
my door
exactly
not
what you're
dressed
talking
up.
about.
You get a
Right.
kick in the shin down my stairs.
Honestly, like my theory, because I love Halloween so much, like you could be 55 years old. If you come up to my door dressed up, you get candy.
Well,
If you don't, you get the one with the razor blade. I'm sorry, what?
Exactly.
Haley and I were actually talking about it, and we want adult trick or treating to be a thing,
That would
where
be awesome.
where everyone has two bowls by their door, and it's like
Don't
the
mix
kid,
it up.
Well, no, the kid walks up and he's like, "Hey, here's your candy," and then like an adult walks up and like, "Hey, here's a beer."
That
So,
so
dude,
wouldn't work.
I know, but I want it. I want it so bad.
That
So-
that actually happened one year. I went trick or treating with like my stepdad and his friend his friend went as like mad scientist. So he like took a syringe and then like put glow stick juice in it, so it was glowing and like had
And he
like
drank it.
yeah, sure. And he had like he put glow stick like handprints over his lab coat, and he had like the pigtailed beard and stuff. And they were like, "Oh, hey, you want a beer?" Or "Hey, you want a hot
Oh,
dog
that's
and
exactly
hamburger?"
great. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, here's a chocolate bar for your kid, and here's a Jello shot for you.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And like every time every time someone would offer him candy, he's like, "I'll gladly take your candy," and opens up his bag.
So he goes up the stairs.
Oh.
and-
Sorry.
He actually approaches a house with no light on, which
Right.
indicates normally in our culture as they're not participating in
As
trick-or-treating.
as the ancient rules state.
Yes, but that is kind of like the what is it
From the
rule.
60s.
yeah the
But no,
rule.
it is cool
And-
because you can tell this guy isn't a stickler because he has a little bucket sitting out. So
Yeah.
please take one,
It says
Of course,
please take it says please
The
take
kid
one
starts
of the candy.
scooping up
because
all
he's
of
a
it.
shitbag.
He greedily throws it all into his bag,
And
and,
the-
then of course he thinks no one's looking around, and then all of a sudden,
You hear that can't be good for your diabetes, Billy.
yes,
Dude, there's
Which
just some
I love.
Poindexter-looking motherfucker.
Yeah. So we end up finding out that this is the principal,
Wilkins.
Principal Wilkins, and he of course the fat kid was about to say something, and he's like, "Don't use a good lie on."
And he's like, take as many as you want.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
fine."
much,
And then he
you
comes
know.
up and sits down on the sit down, my
Yeah.
boy.
He gives him like a really
Yeah.
heartfelt discussion about the history of Halloween and why we have these traditions and everything. And it's worth mentioning that when the kid goes up there, he sees a knife in the jack-o'-lantern. He
And
doesn't think much of it.
He just starts carving as he's talking to
Yeah.
this, and he's being as sinister about it as
Well, no,
possibly
because
can.
he's like, oh, don't worry, and he pulls out another knife, and he's like, oh, I had to go to the store and buy this one. All of mine are dull.
Yeah.
He pulls the knife out.
Yeah.
He's
It's
like,
like, don't worry, this one's not for
this
you.
one's not for you.
And then of course he's talking about the importance, and like you could definitely tell that this man really likes tradition.
He loves
And
Halloween.
so he notices that there are some pumpkin guts or remnants on his shoe.
which he scrapes at with the
Yeah,
knife.
yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love how he's like, like
You've been smashing pumpkins, Billy.
So of course oh, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
The kid kind of starts wavering back and forth while he's talking.
Well, he has like a line that he finally says.
Oh,
where
he says,
he's like,
he says, because he says he was pretty much like saying how important rules are on this holiday, and of course he said one of the biggest important rules that he didn't know.
You forgot the most important rule, Billy.
Yeah.
always check your candy.
And then he just starts
He literally-
blowing chunks.
Yeah, he literally turned into a chocolate
It
fountain.
looks really real.
And it's super gross too, because obviously
Yeah.
this kid's been eating nothing but chocolate all
Which
day.
So
kudos
it's-
to them
yeah.
for like getting this. Like, I mean, it looks like you said, real.
And
I
it's
saw the behind the
It
scenes,
was a
it's just
cool
like a
scene.
pipe that's right here, and the
Oh.
camera's over here, so it's just like.
Oh man,
and it's just spraying out. It is brutal.
yeah. So it looks like a Hershey, pretty much river just coming out of this kid's mouth.
It was the altered ending of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yes.
And of
Yeah.
course, we could tell, like, by the time, like, he lifts the fat kid up, like, there's remnants of blood in it,
Yes.
too.
The dude's really lucky that nobody was
so-
like walking by when that
Of
happened.
course,
'cause-
Bro, right?
Okay, so I really like this guy's system, because like he could have easily just been like, oh, he ate
Yeah,
too
well,
much.
well, he could be like, it's Halloween, it's a prop.
Or,
that,
yeah.
that and, like, I like his demeanor because, like, he is the principal. Like, he has a thing where it's like, he would never hurt a fly. He's, like, really sweet. Like,
Well,
he
that's
definitely-
it's. You think he's
Yeah.
like some sort of badass because
Yeah.
he's done all this, but then he's like trying to lug this kid around. He's
Yeah.
all like, oh god, and he's
'cause-
like
'cause
because
he's
he's
leaking
continuing
all over
to
his
like
shirt.
burp over him, and he's like, this is and then like they get to the backyard, and he's just like a total klutz. He's just like throwing the
Wait,
guy into.
we can't go to the backyard yet.
Oh,
Remember,
not?
because right then we hear a ding dong at the door.
oh
And it was
Yeah.
the trick or treaters, 3 to be exact. A
who will become
pirate,
important later?
a
An
pirate,
angel
an angel, something like
and
that.
an alien.
And an
It's
alien.
funny how remember I said opposites, and she was an angel. We'll get back to her. In
I
a
see
little
what
bit.
you did there.
Yeah.
Okay, of course he passes out the candy. He's still sticking to his traditions.
And I
stuff.
love how nervous this guy is, and like they open up the door and they all immediately scream because
He's
he's covered
covered
in
in
blood.
blood.
And
Yeah.
they all immediately scream, and his initial reaction is, "Oh no, they found out!" And they go, "That's a good costume, Mr. Principal Wilkins."
And you see him just go, oh my
Oh,
god.
And then of course the pirate kid, he knows, he thinks something's going on. You could definitely see it in his face that he fears that something's not right with Principal Wilkins. And then of course he turns off to join the other 2, and then we get our first shot of Sam.
You also missed something.
What?
They asked for a jack-o'-lantern.
Oh yeah,
yes.
they did. For
And
the
that'll
scavenger.
become important later. But
That-
that's all we need to say about
Yeah,
it.
it was. Yeah, they claim it's for a scavenger hunt.
for
or something.
UNICEF.
We're good though. So this is when we see our first shot.
Anything for a good cause.
So we get to see Sam, and of course we're like,
He's
of course,
adorable.
Oh god,
He's adorable.
he holds his bag out, or no, because
His
he's
big old burlap sack.
He just stands there and he goes,
He grabs one.
"Did you get one?" Because it's like it seems like genuinely sweet when the principal
Uh-huh.
looks down and goes, "Did you get one?" And he hands him the candy.
And then he
You
just scampers away.
And if you
Dude,
guys,
Sam's
if
the
you guys
best.
are just, if you guys are just listening to the podcast without watching the movie, just Google Sam, see how adorable he is.
With his
You
little burlap
will-
sack of a
yes.
head.
You will love him.
Yes, with his little orange pajamas and stuff. But then of course of course he respects tradition, which Principal Wilkins is continuing
Monster
to do.
he is. He knows.
Yeah.
Like,
So he takes the candy.
Serious
He
about
takes the
Halloween.
candy bar and runs off. So he's
fine.
He's fine.
And then we get to the backyard.
There we are.
we
And
get
then
back
this is where I continue to say he's like a klutz. He's stumbling over himself. The kid is still moving, so he's like, oh, hitting it with a shovel.
while the
and,
kid's awake and making noise.
and
Yeah.
then a
And-
dog starts to bark.
Well, no, hold on. Right before the dog, what happens is get to meet one of my favorite characters too, other than Sam, is little Billy.
Charlie Brown's an asshole.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
Billy,
part.
Billy, watch your
Language.
So of course that and Billy being loud stirs, of course, the
Dude.
dog.
Daddy, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I have never wanted to like yell at
He's
a
like,
kid
"I
saying
would-"
Halloween's canceled for you, Billy. Ever
Yes.
since.
Oh, but this kid's great.
I
He
know.
comes off annoying at first, but he turns out to be
Yeah.
great.
Oh, he's wonderful.
And of course, I mean, you get to see that different side to Principal Wilkins. Like, he is a family person. He has
He's
a
a
kid
family man.
and stuff, but he just has some crazy hobbies.
Yep.
Of course, go ahead.
And so then the dog starts barking at the fence, and he chops off a finger and throws it at him to
Yeah.
shut him
Well,
up.
because I love that scene because like he's obviously panicking because it
Uh-huh.
shows he
Yeah.
knows what he's doing, but he is kind of an idiot too because he's obviously panicking because as soon as he throws the finger, he's like, "Oh fuck!"
he's like, shit. I'm supposed to bury that part too.
And then the dog starts eating it, and then hears the door open, and
Yeah.
Mr. Krieg comes stumbling out.
Yeah.
One of the best characters in cinema history.
Yeah.
He's yelling at his dogs first, but then he like hears some shuffling around in the next yard, and he's like, "Who's out there? I got an
And
NRA
this is
card in
our-
my pocket and a gun in my shelf."
Shotgun on the fireplace.
And correct me if I'm wrong. It isn't this our second movie with Mr. Krieg? Because
With Rip Torn?
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
He's not
I'm
Rip
kidding.
Torn.
I'm kidding. Just so we're all clear.
No, but he was on Autopsy with Jane Doe. He
Brian
was the
Cox.
mortician.
We keep having weird like
Yeah. Like,
synchronicities.
I know. I like these
wonder where I
parallels.
saw his name.
Yep.
Yeah, I
I
like
know
his
he's in more
parallels.
stuff too, though.
So
Fun fact: he said he wanted to be made up to look like John Carpenter.
and
Go,
looked-
okay, 'cause he
looked pretty
does.
good.
Yeah.
He
He
does.
does. I also
See,
thought
I-
he's kind of got a little bit of a Wilford Brimley thing.
I
going
did
on.
not recognize him.
Of
in
course,
this.
he yells out because he hears the noises, and he's like, "I have an
NRA, and then the
yeah,
shotgun,
a shotgun.
and then Wilkins caves immediately. He doesn't even try to hide. He's like, it's me,
It's me.
it's Mr. Krieg, and he's like, "Wilkins, what are you doing back there?
Yeah.
Burying bodies?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Ha ha."
And then he said it was a septic. That
What's
he
that
was,
smell? It smells like a dead whore. Out
That is like my favorite line.
smells like a dead whore.
and then he's like, "Fix it already!" And then he starts wandering away, and he's like, "Happy Halloween!" And screw you.
Yeah, screw you. So yeah.
Tell your son to get out of my lawn.
And the funny thing is, was that final "screw you" that he yelled back because he gets a little
It's
back.
thrown back at him later.
Yeah.
So,
So-
I think he
love
has
that.
to start like beating the person because they're starting to wake up and
wake
make more
up, yeah.
noise.
So yeah, he's beating it, and then he fully. Oh, and I think Billy, of course,
Yeah,
at
he
this
comes
moment,
back.
and he's like, "I wish Mommy was still alive," which, like, we were trying to, like, I don't know, like,
He said that?
yeah, he's
I don't
like,
remember
I did
that.
not
No, he
remember
doesn't
that
say
part.
that.
he goes, "I wish Mom was." Billy said that.
No, I thought Principal Watkins said that.
That's
as
like a
sarcasm.
joke a little bit
Yeah.
later on.
Oh, I thought it was.
Billy's just talking about how he wants to do Halloween stuff. I need help with the eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Don't
Oh,
forget
yeah.
to help
Okay.
me with
I
the
thought-
eyes.
Okay.
Because
okay.
he's carving
well,
a jack-o'-lantern.
I'm totally wrong then. Okay. Okay. So we go back and was it Principal Wilkins fills in the hole with the bodies,
Comes
and he
in-
also planted a tree, of course, because you got to be inconspicuous. And
No, you gotta recycle.
yeah,
Yeah.
recycle.
Yeah.
So he gets inside, and once he gets inside, and the light turns on, what's the son's name?
Billy.
Oh,
Billy just like jumps out with a mask and goes, "Rah!" and scares the shit out of his dad.
Oh,
And he's
then
like,
before-
I got you.
Before this happens, when he's like watering the plant, that's when you get the scene that Ron was thinking of.
Oh,
where
yeah.
He's doing that thing that every annoyed parent does, where he's muttering under his breath, complaining about his kids, like, "Daddy, Daddy, help! I need help with my jack-o'-lantern. Daddy, I don't want to watch Charlie Brown. Daddy,
So
Daddy,
you
I
see
wish
he's like-
Mom was still alive."
He's,
And then-
he's still like extremely annoyed.
As he's
by it.
going up the stairs, he looks over to his right and he sees Mr. Krieg banging at the
Oh,
window,
I love
shaking at
that
the
part.
bars, just like, "Help me, Mr. Wilkins!" And he's like, "Screw you!" and
and
walks
then we
inside.
see a little figure jump and
Take him out.
Takes
So,
him out.
I
so
love
he
that.
did throw the screw you back at him, and then of course, yeah, we
The
go
scare.
inside, get the scare from Billy.
Help me with the jack-o'-lanterns, and he's like, "Oh, I'll help you with the jack-o'-lantern."
Grabs the knife off the table
He's
and he hides
ominous
it behind his
as
back.
hell.
Yep.
They start going down the stairs, and then they get up to the little jack-o'-lantern do, and he's like, "Are you gonna help me with the eyes this time?" And he goes, "Oh yes, I will."
And so he
raises
lifts
his
the
hand.
eye-
He puts his
yeah.
hand on his head, he raises the knife up, and he slams it down
Down.
into something.
And then he comes up with blood, and you're like, "No, Billy!"
I actually think it goes the other way around, where it pans down and you see Billy's fine, and then he's like, "Oh, so they are carving a pumpkin." And then he lifts the knife up and it's covered in blood, and you're like, "Oh wait."
See, I thought it was.
I think it was the blood first,
Yeah.
and then
I
it
think it
pans
was
down.
the blood
I see.
first,
So
actually.
I'm
To show.
wrong.
So poor Billy, and then of course we find out it wasn't Billy. It was actually the fat kid's severed head.
Yep, just sitting there, and then the kid, and then now you realize, oh, the kid's in on this too. This is their Halloween tradition.
It's like, and you
It's
can
pretty
tell,
adorable.
And if you remember earlier, like when Wilkins was talking about his father passing his tradition down, so you could definitely tell it's going down
To
the
the
family
family.
line. So Billy's going to be a murderer one day.
And one important thing, he says at some point in all this that it's like, I'm going to help you right now, but I got a date later on.
I got a date. Because the kid asked if he can go to the parade with his dad,
Right.
and then he's like, "No, you can't go. I got a date tonight."
Okay, so that's important for later. And then after all this,
Sorry.
I forget what
And
happened.
you know-
It's worth
And
it. I do.
after this, Principal Wilkins didn't forget the eyes.
No, he
And that's
didn't.
the most
Yeah.
important part.
I guess
Okay.
deep down he is a good dad and he loves Halloween. Just also
Okay,
found a
so
monster.
now the next bit of movie was we pan back to the three kids.
Oh yeah,
That
looking
were
for
trick-
jack-o'-lanterns.
They're looking for jack-o'-lanterns. So
They go to the weird sex party.
So yes, they end up going, and they see one of their drunk teachers because they said Mrs. I forgot her name, Kubapple. We'll say
Yeah.
that.
No,
Probably.
no, they spotted multiple teachers
Yes,
because
and it-
one of the lines the
Yeah.
pirate says is like
Isn't that
absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. So it's a very adult party. Like in the background, you could see it's almost like orgy.
Yeah, there's
kinda.
noises.
There's a hot
Yeah.
dog humping a woman, and I
Yeah.
mean that both ways.
The PE teacher was butt fucking a pig.
Yes, that was literally
That
the
was
line.
the
Yes.
best
But
line.
basically, all this is this kid's getting a pumpkin.
So of course they ask her, or she invites them in for drinks. They of course decline, thank God. And then they said they were pretty much on a scavenger hunt to look for these jack-o'-lanterns. So of course, she abides and says, "Go ahead and take whatever you want, whatever." And the kids, of course. Oh, and then of course they get out to the street, and then they meet up with this fourth kid, and he's carrying a cart full of jack-o'-lanterns.
No, he's only got one jack.
No, he's got
No,
three.
he has
He's
like
he's
three
got
or
three.
four.
But then the girl says something like, "What the hell? This is all you have?" And the kid goes, "Well, some asshole's going around smashing all the pumpkins."
Yeah.
Reference.
So
there's a
then-
little zigzag there
They stumble upon the mother of all pumpkins.
in the yard.
Yep, there's like dozens and dozens of them carved out, and it looks rad.
Oh god. Okay, so Atchison, Kansas has one of those houses.
Oh,
They
God.
have a pumpkin house there. I would recommend checking it out.
Those are really cool. And
Actually
whoever
really
does
cool.
that out there, let us know. 'Cause I would love to come and see it.
Shout out.
But we actually get to see our new character, Rhonda.
Yep.
And they called her, what is it, retarded Rhonda?
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
And,
Round-
the,
Rhonda
and
the
the
retard.
angel girl actually says,
Yeah.
"Don't say that. It's idiot savant."
She's an idiot savant.
Yes.
This is the one like treading on ice area because I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure how well this movie
Yeah.
does, but we'll hope it does well and move on.
Hey, so the early 2000s was a really weird time. So I always, because I'm more willing to give the early 2000s a pass for shit like this than I am
Uh-huh.
stuff made in the 50s.
And what's really sad is like even that word being used today is like it's still there. Like I've heard it in recent movies and I'm like, whoa.
Are you talking about the Predator?
I didn't see Predator.
Dude, they
Yeah.
use that word a lot.
Okay.
Like,
So and as I get older,
It's
like and we
pretty-
are in a PC world, so we have to watch out.
Well, it's
for that.
like, especially when you play video games that come out in the early 2000s, and
Yeah.
you have, no one at this table is going to get it, but when you get to the first boss in God Hand, oof.
like Ron said, we live in a PC world, and sometimes that does annoy me. But like I said, I was also sitting there watching this time. The first time I watched it, I didn't think about this, but this time I was like, I'm not entirely sure how accurate this is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ignore that and move on.
Like I said,
I-
it's the early 2000s. Is the mistake of the decade.
Right. So anyway,
So,
it's clear that they're
they're-
luring her in for something.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and so they invite Rhonda to come along.
The boy does. The rest of the three
Yeah.
like walk away,
They're-
and it's
like,
it's
we-
clear they've set him up.
Of course, foreshadowing. Yes, there's a reason why they have Rhonda around. So now it just they're going about their merry little way, but we go back to we will return back to the Halloween Town area, the party, and everything's going. I mean, it's still partying, and of course we don't know the timeline because we're just
because it's all
Whatever.
Is this where we find the
and
girl
then we
in
see
the alley?
the girls in the alley.
I have a question about this
And
later.
then, okay, the girl's in the alley, and there it's like she's with this other guy. He's masked and like they're
Dressed
just-
all in black, a cape
he's-
and a hood.
Yeah,
Fangs.
they're like well, what looks like it's just heavy sex, breathing, like they're like making out, whatever. And then
Oh,
all
it's-
of a sudden, he comes up from her leg,
There's
and
blood, dripping down her
yeah.
arms and her legs, like
And her
everywhere.
neck.
and of course he flashes his vampire teeth, so you can tell. Okay, now we got
And you're like, oh,
vampires
is
in
this kind
town.
of movie?
Also, it's worth mentioning that this has been a problem for a while because it happens later in the movie, but I'm gonna bring it up now. But you do see a newspaper that says, "Is the Man in Black back?"
I don't
Oh,
remember
I
that
don't
at all.
remember that. Now I might have to
I
look
do
at. See,
not
these are the
remember
subtle
that.
things that, like,
Yeah.
I must have missed the first.
It's,
the first
again,
1,000
we'll get
times, 'cause
to
I've
it,
seen this
but
like
it's-
1,000 times.
Yeah, you know that scene where Mr. Krieg is burning the stuff. That's one of the
Oh.
newspaper
course.
clippings.
Oh,
And
okay.
We'll get to that a little
This
later
is
on.
the
but-
worst time to ever be a victim, is because it's Halloween.
She
She's
runs
covered
away,
in blood,
and then she
screaming.
bursts out of the alleyway
Yeah.
and runs into what their faces.
Yes,
Robot Lady
Henry,
and
yeah,
Space Cowboy.
Henry and Emma,
And she
again.
grabs at them, and then Henry is like, "Oh, don't worry about her. She's just drunk." And they
Yes.
pan over, and right next to her is like a gaggle of people who are in like gore makeup with like slit throats
Look
and
almost
like
exactly
stuff.
the same.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're just assuming
So
that they're together.
so she ends up backing up because she feels defenseless.
And who
like-
should be behind her but the
Yes.
Man in Black?
Yes, and he ends up taking
Johnny Cash.
She,
Yes.
yeah.
Yay.
So
A
he
man
ends, up,
comes
scary.
to town.
he, ends up killing her by either draining her, breaking her neck, something.
And he
happens.
just sets her down,
sets her down on a park
Closes her
bench.
eyes
and then
Yeah.
just walks away.
Yeah.
next
walks
to a
away.
bunch of other passed
Halloween
out
is the
drunks.
best time to murder people.
I fucking love
Yes.
Halloween.
So, so after that, that's when we go back to the kids, and they're walking, and you know, like, I don't know. I actually, one thing to take away from somebody else's thing, it kind of reminded them. This isn't my words, but it does now remind me of that. It's kind of the Charlie Brown scene where they're walking through the pumpkin patch. So it shows the kids walking towards the rock quarry, and of course, this is where we get the.
Rhonda explains to
Yeah.
Pirate Kid the history
yeah.
of Halloween
Yeah,
because he's
well,
all like, "Oh,
yeah.
do you always celebrate Halloween this hardcore?" And she's like, "Do you mean Samhain or the
Yeah,
All Hallows
that's-
Eve or Halloween?" And that's kind of where I'm like,
and she does break it down and like a little bit
Mhm.
like what was it? She said something about like the veil is the thinnest
Yep.
Between the living and the dead.
"This is where this is the night where things get the most fun."
yeah. So of course, so we get back there and Rhonda asks, "Why are we here?" You know, why? Like she's not in the loop, of course. You know, the
And-
rest of them are like knowing something's
Angel's
going on.
girl starts to tell the story of the bus.
Yeah,
Which I
and
guess
she-
is technically our fourth
And,
story in this movie.
and I love this because when it cuts to the bus, it like goes into like this sepia tone flashback of
Yeah.
like
super bright.
Halloween past,
Yeah, so-
and all the kids are dressed up in those fucked up Halloween costumes
Oh,
that
I
like
love
early
them.
kids in the
Dude,
50s used to
I'm
wear
not
that
gonna
are
lie,
scary
those-
as fuck.
I know. I did like that too.
If
but-
you ever want to be creeped out, look at like old Halloween
They're the
pictures.
best. I would wear them today if I didn't think I was gonna get shot.
Yeah,
It
it's
said,
like
okay, so the story begins. What's her name? Angel. I forgot. The
Angel Girl.
It doesn't
Angel
matter.
Girl.
Angel Girl.
She
that's the
said
great thing about Halloween.
30
You can call them by their costumes.
Yes. So 30 years ago on Halloween, that afternoon, a school bus filled with unusual and disturbed children with a creepy
Yeah.
with creepy mask. I put.
I'll give this one a
Okay.
pass because it is a kid telling an urban
Yeah.
story.
Yes,
That's how they always go.
and okay, and they were or they were driven to a school out of town and far away because their parents were ashamed of their own children. So this bus would take the kids out of town, away from
To a
pretty much the
special needs
public
school.
children.
I'm pretty sure most of the town didn't even know these kids existed.
Exactly. It was
So
it was
they didn't have to worry about them going missing.
exactly. Perfect. So on this special day, the bus decided to take a different route.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we get Dracula, who's like, "You're going the wrong way."
Dracula's the only one that notices. Everyone else
He's
is
counting
getting
the
tough.
house numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and of course, I mean, I would say that might be some early autism, like, because back then, like, well, 30 years. I mean, you would assume autism may have been. No, maybe not.
Autism's been a thing forever.
Yeah, I know.
It's
but
just that
no,
back
but
then-
like that back then, like
Back then, if you had it, they just locked you in.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Or oh, you need electric shock therapy or something.
And so
Um,
they're driving out of town, and as they drive out of town, we get a cameo from Sam.
Yes,
Yeah,
Sam's
poking a dead bird.
dead bird.
Which I love this scene because it's actually a great callback to the original short story where he is poking like a baby doll with a stick.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Sam's the best.
And so then they get to the quarry.
Yeah, so the parents have grown tired and embarrassed of their children, so they pulled all their money together.
If I had a-
Shallow
Say,
bitches.
if I had a
Shallow-
nickel,
Shallow bitches.
if I had a nickel for every time my parents said that about me,
Oh my god, that's terrible.
You know what would be hilarious? It was like the parents take their piggy banks, break it, and then
Yeah.
give it to the
I was
bus
like,
drivers.
I was literally curious how much money did it take to rub out these kids?
I don't know.
Bro,
Bro,
Eight of
it's
them.
it's
As we find out-
1930. It's probably $20.
As we,
It's not
as we
1930.
find out
You're right.
later-
it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
As we find out later
That
on, this
puts us
guy
in
was
the 80s.
already probably kind of a shitbag, so he
Mhm.
probably didn't even take that much.
Right. He was probably annoyed having to drive every day with these kids.
Yeah. And so,
That sounded bad. That's not what I meant.
so
He probably was.
Right.
Like, that's how he
Yeah.
was as a person.
That's how he viewed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did he look happy?
No.
No,
There
not,
you go.
he didn't look very happy.
Not a single time.
But we only got to see his eyes.
So at the core, like he starts
Yeah.
giving them all candy and checking the change.
That's the thing was he parked out by the edge.
Yes.
And so he immediately goes and checks their restraints to
and
make
that's
sure
a
that
piece of
they're-
candy to keep them quiet.
Evidently, it was okay back then to literally shackle your kids to this.
So
bus.
this movie came out 2007. What's 30 years before 2007?
I mean,
1980 something?
I'm taking that out. So yes, they continue to. He continues to check the chains, and it's very convenient. All the kids have chains except for Dracula, who just has like wrist cuffs.
Like weird leather cuffs.
Convenience, but
And
I don't
so
know.
he gets past, but the Dracula kid starts freaking out, saying he has to get home, and he starts like wriggling out of the
Yeah.
cuffs,
He gets agitated and he jumps behind the wheel of the
Yep.
bus.
and he just goes for it.
Yeah.
And they go right over the edge, which is great. I love this scene. It's great sound direction in this scene because
Yeah.
the bus turns on. It's a loud diesel engine right in your face,
Yeah.
and it goes over the cliff, and it's complete
quiet.
silence. You don't even hear a crash; just
Nope.
complete silence. And then
You
the camera slowly goes forward and looks
Yeah.
down. You
That
see
was-
it sinking into
It
the
was
lake.
very fancy.
You know what's funny? This is the second death bus scene I've seen in a horror movie.
Oh, I've seen like
Oh, and
Dozens.
Then, but
Nothing,
then-
nothing will over
but-
top. I know it's
but-
not a horror
Hobo with a
movie.
shotgun.
But we need to say this.
I was thinking that Nightmare on Elm Street too. but,
Oh, yeah.
That's
What
a good one, too.
surfaced from the bus? We saw the bus driver surface. So the bus driver got away.
and a few masks.
And a few masks bubble up, but all
Bus
eight,
driver has a
pretty
bunch of
much
scars on his
all
face
8
now.
kids are dead
Yep.
or perished or whatever. And so that is the reason why they need the jack-o'-lanterns.
Yep.
To
because
pay homage to him.
yeah, 8 jack-o'-lanterns to pay homage for each person who had died
Mm-hmm.
in that wreckage or whatever. So they decide to take the elevator.
I was gonna say, I think we can actually talk
Yeah.
about this whole segment
Yeah.
for once.
Yes.
So yeah, 3 of them get to the elevator, but then they close off
They
for
leave-
Pirate and Rhonda.
to stay up.
And they're all like, "Oh, it wouldn't fit like all of us," and it's like clearly they're setting something up.
Yeah,
And so
it
they
sucked.
go down, and then she says she'll send the key back up, and then the 2 of them follow after a few minutes, and the elevator is going down, and you see the 3 lit jack-o'-lanterns in
Great
the
shot. One
fog.
of my favorite
I
shots
love
in the
that
whole movie.
shot.
And in the fog, because they're all looking around and
Yeah,
they're
you
like
can-
quipping at each other,
you
but
can
then
hear
you
them
hear
yelling at
like,
each
"Hey,
other.
what's that?" And it's like, "Oh, you're making fun," or you just making shit up, and then it's like, "Oh my god, I saw something," and then you just start hearing screams, and then one of the
Yeah.
jack-o'-lanterns goes out, and then another one goes out, and the
Yeah.
2 on the elevator are like, "Oh my god, oh my god," and it's
Pirate's about to piss himself.
Yep.
And
So of course they
Actually, Rhonda seems pretty chill.
yeah, you can
And-
tell she's like panicking, but she is really calm.
And also, I forgot to say this. When the bus went down, they said that they never recovered the bus because it was so deep in a lake, which I thought was kind of far fetched, but oh well.
hey, rock quarries
yeah.
are horrendously dangerous.
Okay. But we get to find out that once Rhonda gets down there, for some weird reason, the bus is surfaced. Like, why is the
Well,
bus?
the
No
because
water
the lake
level
is
rose.
drained.
No.
Bro,
I
you
don't think. I don't
almost
think.
had
No,
it.
I really don't think it. I think it surfaced for a reason.
No,
Not
no, the lake drained.
You think it's just there always like that?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You ever seen a rock quarry?
No, because didn't you hear what they said? The kids, they go, but then why is the bus there?
No, they knew that.
They did.
Angel Girl knew it was there because the
The-
other girl asked, and then
Ah.
she's like, "Oh yeah, whatever."
The story's actually true. Like,
Yeah.
she knew that.
Okay. Well, I just assumed that bus.
Now you raise a very good
surfaced.
question of since the lake is drained, why hasn't someone done anything with the bus? So
I don't know if when you go out into the middle of the woods into the middle of nowhere, you find cars everywhere.
right, but this
Just
is
left
like
there.
a quarry, so even if
And
it's
you gotta-
abandoned, I
and you-
assumed somebody.
And you gotta
Oh,
even think
they
30
believe
years
it.
later, they're gonna find remnants of foul play, and somebody would have said something.
Murder.
Murder. And then-
Anyway,
Okay.
Anyway.
So
Rhonda goes out.
gets close to the water.
Pirate
and,
kid stayed at the elevator, by
And
the way.
she reaches for one of the masts that's floating into the water, and then all of a sudden, a ghoul jumps out at her.
Covered in chains.
Yeah, covered in chains. And so she runs, of course, like anybody would freak out. And so she's running, and she gets her glasses knocked off. And so she
Doesn't
can't.
another one join in the chase?
Yeah, it was like
Well,
like
three of them
Three of
joined in
them.
on the chase.
Three of them are joined in.
And then she like runs by and she sees Pirate Kid with his intestines all out, getting eaten and devoured.
Yeah.
And he's
So,
like,
oh yeah, I forgot about that part. And so, of course, she makes her way to the elevator, and that's when she hears laughter. And so
No.
she, wasn't it?
She's backing up because she's
Oh.
cornered at some point, and she
Okay.
slips and like gets
Oh,
knocked
that's
out.
right. Duh.
Yeah,
And then-
and then when the
Knocks
kid
it-
when the
yeah.
kid says, "Oh shit," so that's
Oh,
we messed
yeah.
up now.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. She
So-
did knock herself
So
out.
And
that's
so
how
when-
you know the monsters are fake.
She wakes up, decks one of them in the face, and then starts like scampering her way. But then they're all like talking normally now, where they're like, "Rhonda, it's fine. It was just a prank.
It was
Just a prank, bro."
And it went way too far.
Yep.
And so, at that moment, that's when we start hearing other noises, like. Right?
No, not yet.
Oh.
What
Alien girl
the
and
bo-
angel girl.
the boy stays with her, not Pirate Boy, but like the boy who's like kind
yeah.
of the one that's been the most nice to her
The
the,
guy- the
entire
guy
night.
with
obviously
the
has a
cart.
crush on.
Yep.
He had the cart. It pretty much is the boy who lured her there.
Well, yeah, but like you can
He
tell
did.
he's the one that's all like because the rest of them are still being kind of dicks about this, but he's like, we've gone far enough, clearly, and so like
It's actually like all of them kind of start being like, I don't know about this. It's Angel
Except for
Girl.
Angel, yeah.
Angel Girl's what turns out to be a
and so
massive bitch.
they
That's why she's a demon.
So-
She wore the opposite costume.
they go to get like the like their stuff because they had just set it aside, and
Yeah.
that's where she says, "Oh, it was a real story and such," and that's when the things jump out.
Okay.
I don't even think you get a good look.
So
Not yet.
Not yet.
Because what happens is they're dealing with that, and it's like a jump scare at first, and then we cut back to Rhonda and the boy, and he like hears the screams, and he's like, "Come on, guys! Like it's
Quit
it's
fucking
over."
around.
Yeah, and so he gets up to go and look at him, and leaves Rhonda alone. And so he goes, runs into Angel, and she's like screaming and terrified and crying, and like they're trying to figure out what's going on, and that's when we see like the things coming out of the fog, and
I
they're
see.
like, "Oh
Yeah.
fuck!"
So yeah, and they must have messed with pretty much like Halloween. Don't mess with it.
So all four of them start bolting, and they get
Yeah.
to the elevator, and Rhonda's on the
like,
elevator with the
yep.
door closed, and they're like,
Locked.
"Rhonda, let us in. This isn't a prank this time. This is real." They're the children who cried wolf.
Yeah, so she ends up, of course, getting her ultimate revenge by hitting the up button rather than.
Do you think she knew?
I think
Yeah,
she
she
did.
did.
I wasn't sure if she thought it was just a prank again.
No, because this is what happened was she had that face where she was like upset and
Yeah.
she was getting her revenge.
Okay.
Then also when Rhonda get like you hear them screaming.
When you get to
like,
the top, you hear
yeah,
the crunching, and
Yeah, the crunching. So they're pretty much dead. And kudos to the director because he killed kids
Just
in a horror movie.
Ices those kids.
So
We
The
went
best
straight
part
Italian
is-
on this movie.
Well,
Yes.
The best part is all the kids that have to totally deserve it.
yeah, they did. They did.
Assheads. All of them.
I don't
No
know
one's
if they
safe.
deserve to get murdered, but okay.
So
In
of
a
course,
horror movie, they did.
well,
yeah, in a horror movie.
in a horror movie.
Fuck
yeah.
those kids.
Yeah.
And so, of course, we see Rhonda laying eyes on Sam, and
Sam
Sam
is just
kind of like gave her like, yeah,
We did
like,
good.
Yeah, we did good because like you got tricked, and now you did the tricking. Let's go. So of course,
Come,
Just-
my
They both
apprentice.
just lost their
Yes.
separate ways,
Do it.
and that's the end of this story.
yes.
And so the next story.
Okay, so at this point we see Lori
Yep.
walking down, which she broke rule number 1. She's alone on Halloween night.
Because she had stayed behind in the town.
She stayed behind to try to find a date, and, she
And at that
wasn't-
point, she sees the dude in black, but he doesn't do
But
anything.
we all know when people walk alone.
Oh yeah.
something happens.
Bad
right?
things.
Bad things
They
happen.
they reach their
So-
destination.
so-
I don't
of
know,
course,
things worked out pretty good.
Out
in
of
the end.
nowhere, guess who pops up out of nowhere?
The Man in
Nicholas
Black.
Cage.
The Man in Black. The
Who was
vampire.
Nicolas Cage?
The
Who was
vampire.
Nicolas?
And
He
he's
was
all up.
definitely not Nicolas Cage.
He's all up in her neck, and he's like, "My, what
big
big
eyes
eyes
you
you
have."
have." And
Yeah.
he's like,
And of
"Oh,
course,
I see what you did
she's,
there."
She's into it at first too because she's like, "Oh, I finally found someone for this party."
Yeah. And then
They start.
No, she's not. He like
she's not.
immediately
He-
attacks
he
her.
immediately
And she's
attacks her.
bleeding.
Because the whole point is they actually lock eyes in town, and then
Right.
she leads him out because she's playing hard to get.
Oh, I thought she was just ignoring him
No.
because he was.
No.
Because she tells her to
uh,
play hard to get.
No,
One of the
Yes
friends
and no.
does.
you nailed it right.
he does say
He's-
that. She
he-
does say that, but
She did notice him, and it was a ploy to get him to follow her.
exactly,
But-
it is a
but-
ploy. But,
but-
at the time you're
but at the
watching it,
time,
you're supposed to
yeah.
think she just brushed
So
him
sorry for all those people. And so the next scene we see Lori
I misread
or
that scene
off. Yeah,
entirely.
we
Lori's-
see Lori's sister and all the other girls
Yeah.
like chilling with a bunch of dudes.
and then out of the tree drops a body, and it's wrapped in the cape of the Little Red Riding
And
Hood.
they're like, "Oh shit!" And the
Oh,
sister
shit.
approaches
They're-
all
like,
scared.
they're thinking Lori's hurt, something's going on,
Something hurt her, yeah.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we get the big reveal. And what's the reveal?
They pull the
Adrian
hood.
Brody.
Yes, they pull
my
the
gosh.
hood back, and it's the
The
Man in Black.
who's whimpering and crying.
And
his
he's
whole
all
ass off.
he is-
covered in blood. And he's
yeah,
like,
he-
"Please help me."
Yeah, it was
and-
so weird.
He is terrified.
And Lori just comes strutting out of the woods, like licking her fingers, like, "Hey guys, what's going on?"
yeah, exactly. And then, of course, one of the previous girls or whatever goes closer to the man and sees that he has the vampire teeth to see
And
if
pops
he's
them
true.
out.
Yeah, so she
So I have a
pops,
question about this.
Yeah, so she pops out his teeth, and of course they're fake.
So if he's not a vampire, the way he killed that girl in the alleyway was very inconvenient to him. Like he
Yeah.
was going through a lot of effort.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think he was into it.
yeah.
I will.
Halloween, dude.
Have you
Yeah,
ever
think-
have you ever bitten into an apple with fake teeth? Do you think that would
No.
happen with a person's neck?
But yes.
Yeah, well, here's the thing though: is that skin on the jugular is actually incredibly thin. A cat scratch cut pop the vein and kill
Cat
you.
scratch fever.
Oh my god,
Uh,
well, that's
hey.
terrible. Okay,
Wow.
so
Well,
But like,
Just-
so if
and
you
then
actually, if you got the neck, it'd
Lori-
be incredibly easy.
It's just
Lori
a
and
reminder how
her
furry we
sister
are.
have a little conversation where
Yeah,
they're
they're
like,
like,
"It was your
"Are you
first
okay?
time. We did good. Are you
Are
okay?
you
I'm just
okay?
making
Yeah.
sure."
Thinking like, okay, like what's going on? Like we're
Yeah, we
all
had a good time.
confused. Like,
And-
like what? Like why? Because at first we thought, okay, Lori's getting preyed on. Now Lori is the predator.
And then those two start wandering away, and one of
Yeah.
the other girls is like dealing with the Man in Black dude, and
Yeah.
like takes off his mask, and
Yeah.
who should it be?
But
But
Mr.
Mr.
Prince-
Wilkins.
Principal Wilkins again. This dude is all over the place.
You were
Yeah.
just an asshole.
No.
You're just.
I really like this.
Oh, I do too.
Because
Yeah.
because I mentioned earlier, there's the newspaper clipping that says the Man in Black is
Oh,
wandering
and we
around, and it's an
also-
old newspaper clipping,
Yeah.
and he's talking about how his dad had these
Yeah.
Halloween traditions.
Oh.
This has been going on in this town
Yeah.
for a while.
Dude, I didn't even
Yeah.
piece that together.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it until I watched it this morning.
So-
Good job. Sam.
Awesome.
Okay, so
And the thing I like about this is it plays into the idea of there's always a bigger fish. You may be a crazy serial killer who goes around murdering people, but my gosh.
and of course you wonder why Principal Wilkins doesn't just get up and run away.
Well,
Well,
because he
Because
like
he
pulls
has a broken leg.
pulls the hood back,
look-
bone is jutting out.
Bone
Through
is-
the
And-
leg.
and then-
Looks
No.
like Principal
Through the
Wilkins
leg.
bit off a bit
So
more
he-
than he can chew.
So he's definitely not there.
The girl is talking to him and he's like, "Who are you people?" And then she just kind of smiles, and then you look around and all the other dudes there.
and then you see where all the budget for this movie went.
Yep.
Well,
First, you see all the dudes who are dead,
they're
like
li- the
their
whole
throats
cast-
are
no, but
ripped
I'm,
out.
I'm
they're
not. I'm
covered in
not
blood.
talking about what you think I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the music that starts playing.
Oh,
when,
Sweet Dreams?
yeah, when Marilyn Manson's cover of Sweet Dreams
that
starts
probably did
playing.
cost a lot. You're
I
right.
And it's like, oh, that's-
really
Oh,
like
I love that.
No,
I
it's
love
such a great scene, and it's like, oh, well, it's obviously where all the budget to this movie went.
Yeah,
But
and then-
all the dudes are dead,
Dead.
covered in blood, and he's
then-
just like, "Oh my god!"
And then Lori straddles him and says, "This is my first time."
Yep.
You know, so
Just
we're
so
like,
bear with
So
me.
it's like,
so
and then-
we're like, what's going to happen now?
and he's like,
Pretty.
"What are you?" And they all start
all of them start
gyrating
to
and doing a dance.
Taking off their
The
clothes.
way
and
the
then-
behind the scenes described this was, "Oh well, we wanted to do a new spin on the transformation, so we made it a striptease. And what was that transformation? werewolves.
Yeah.
I love werewolves.
And they rip their skin off.
Well, that's actually
that was really
my,
cool.
That's my
What,
favorite.
dude?
It's actually one of my favorite werewolf
I know.
transitions because
Oh,
it's so different from everything else.
And I love the contacts that they use. The
Oh, yeah.
eyes were
I
great.
know they
So
look.
good.
Those are like the best werewolf-looking
Yes.
eyes I've ever seen.
Yes.
And the teeth too.
Yeah, the teeth.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like I like it because it is so different. It's not like a painful, horrible mutation like in other movies.
Like one of them just takes their fingernail and just like slits
And
at
what
the
is
back
that?
of their
like
skin like a zipper.
And,
And
then
then
there's
more
they're
super
ripping off the skin off their legs like stockings.
Uh-huh.
And then we
It's
get to
great.
see, I think it was an animatronic
Yep, with
werewolf,
heads.
which was pretty cool. It
Puppet
was pretty
heads.
cool. And of course, that's when Lori took a big bite out of
Well, like you see, like
Falcon's neck.
she jabs at him. Is like, my, what big eyes you have.
yeah.
And then she howls and just like digs in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
she-
yes.
so she is the predator now.
Best, like good looking werewolves, but best looking human werewolves, if that makes any sense. Because
Yeah, no,
most
that makes
werewolves have like a pre-werewolf state where like the wolf is coming out, but they're still human.
It looks
Best
good.
that.
Okay.
I do want to kind of explain where I was coming from. I don't think she was into it when she approached him,
Uh-huh.
because obviously she's just like, just want to get this guy so my friends stop fucking with me.
Uh-huh.
I think she got a taste for it though.
But like, cause she goes up and she's kind of like giggling along, haha, and then she kisses.
No,
his
she's
neck.
not.
Well, she's not like giggling, like real giggling. She's being more
From
like.
what
she's
I
being
remember,
coy.
the attack starts immediately and she's screaming and she's
Well,
like,
no, because she kisses, like she kind of gets in close and she's kind of giggling, and she doesn't kiss him, but she bites him, and that's when he's like, "All right."
I don't remember that at
Yeah.
I did watch it this morning,
all. Okay, so did I.
but and then whatever.
That's all last
Bite
night.
you. But, I just wanted to explain where I was coming from.
Okay.
And before we get off of it, I
Uh-huh.
just wanted one of my favorite things about this story is Lori and her sister are weird even for werewolves apparently, because there's a scene when they're waiting for her to actually show up when one of the friends is talking to Lori's sister, and she says something, and then like she's like, "Oh, don't be worried about her. She's a big girl now. She can handle herself." And then Lori's sister says something like, "I don't know. My mom always said she was the runt of the litter." And then the other girl looks at her like she's a fucking weirdo.
But then you understand what that means because
Yeah.
they're all wolves.
Yeah, but even by that point, she's still like, why did you say that? Like,
So there was almost
We don't need to tease we're werewolves anymore.
By the way, yeah, that's the whole thing. Because the whole plot of this is basically like a misdirection. It was like, oh, these girls are all
Well,
going to
they
get murdered
even
in the
hint
forest,
at
and then
it.
it's like, oh.
they even hint at it earlier on, like during the kids' story, when there's a brief cut to them at the party, and then you hear a howl, and then cut back to the kids, and what's the little girl's name? The witch one?
Rhonda.
She looks
she
up
says
and says,
werewolves. Also, when
Oh
this
yeah, 'cause you could hear them.
when this blood orgy is going down and people are getting eaten, it cuts to Sam sitting on a log having a good
Yeah,
time.
he was definitely like appeased.
Uh-huh.
And so, okay, now before we jump away from werewolves, because I think this is like honestly one of my favorite transformations, right next to American Werewolf in London.
I like it so
I
much because
actu-
it's so different compared.
Yes.
I actually like this one a bit more.
See, I like the other one because
The American Werewolf in London is just such a
it's-
touchstone.
Yeah.
you know?
It
And like you
still
got this,
looks good.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, to this day, and it was made the year I was born, 1981. I'm
I've,
old.
I've seen dozens of werewolf transformations using CG. None of
None
them
of them
have
are
looked
good.
even a smidge
And I
as good
really
as
wish
American
horror
Werewolf.
movies would go back to
The
this.
only CG one I like is the one from Van Helsing, and that's because it's so weird.
It's
but-
kind of the same where they're ripping off the skin,
Yeah,
only
and-
it's like they're growing at the same
But
time.
I like that one in particular because he's climbing on the wall to stay in the moonlight while it.
I do like that.
And
one.
I will say this about this. It did leave me wondering. I mean, probably don't even need to really wonder, but I kind of wanted to see them transfer back to human. How would they, from fur
I
to...
bet they
You know,
literally just
I-
put their skin back on.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And then,
you
and
know,
then one of them puts on arms like, oh wait, Lori, this is yours.
Oh, damn.
you know that
She
makes,
never transforms though.
that makes me think of
you
No, you
lose
just see the
before.
eyes.
Yeah.
And, oh, well,
Well,
you,
The
she
spine of
does-
her ridge goes, and she has like a weird face warp when
Yeah.
she's howling.
Yep.
But then when she comes back to bite,
Yeah,
that face
she's
warp
normal.
goes away.
Yeah.
well, she's a first
You're right.
timer,
Right.
So
It takes her a little bit longer to get there.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting if this, like in the werewolf mythology, you like grow into being a werewolf. Like you
I bet
start
it
at those
does.
early stages, and then as you kill more and more and get more and more of a taste of blood, you become more wolf-like. That'd be cool.
that'd be
Well, whoever did this sequence needs to do more.
Anyway, it's kind of poetic in a way because the vampire versus werewolves thing has been a while forever.
Werewolves obviously win.
Yeah, they went super hard, but it's also cool because
Not
they.
thematically. physically.
Physically.
Werewolves should beat the
Physically,
shit
yeah.
out of vampires every,
Every
time.
time. But anyway, and it's also
You're
kind
right.
of not. It's kind of poetic
They
in a
can rip
way
them to
where
shreds.
these real these monsters dealt with a different kind of monster, or did they?
The reason why vampire movies are usually, on the whole, sometimes better than werewolf movies is because you still have a main character when you're following a vampire, because at all points in time, they are them.
And almost
Whereas in
every-
every werewolf movie, you can't really, like, deal with them when they're the werewolf.
And
There
then,
is someone
and then
else.
every werewolf in human form is always the same.
Yeah.
Look,
Oh, what have I
I'm a
done?
werewolf.
I want to see a werewolf who likes what they are. That's
The
why I like
closest-
ginger snaps.
Well, so the closest you're ever
Yes.
gonna get is What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh my god.
Or it's a
they're, doing,
support-
they're doing the sequel with
Uh,
werewolves.
Did you
That's
actually?
awesome.
Did you see what it was called?
Yes.
Werewolves.
I was
Werewolves.
I was listening to a podcast with Michael Rosenbaum,
Mm-hmm.
the guy who played Lex Luthor in Smallville. He said he just tried out recently. They're gonna have a TV show of What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes.
yeah,
awesome.
the sequel's gonna be
He
werewolves.
said he didn't get it, but he tried out
You know,
for it. So I know it's in production.
I want.
Or it's-
Okay, so
it's
if any
going.
series can pull off any TV series could pull off the every season's a different story, this one can. First season could be the vampires in New
Yeah.
Zealand, and then season 2 could be like
Werewolves.
werewolves in like
Ghosts,
New York or something,
yeah.
or ghosts in
We're
London.
werewolves,
Witches
not
at some point.
swearwolves.
Ghosts in London has already been done though by
Nah.
a really shitty by a really shitty TV show, but
Gotcha.
we can
You know,
live without it.
One thing that bugged me about werewolves is that it was the same thing I spot in American Werewolf in London. Since like everyone hates being werewolves, then what's the whole point of vampire
Well, we
versus
all-
werewolf?
we
It's
all
because
know.
everyone loves being the fucking vampire.
Because you
but
underworld this shit, and we need to draw the line in the sand, and we need to kill those
Like,
motherfuckers
the-
because they're different.
the last time I saw like I played something with like werewolves that like someone actually enjoyed being werewolves was like the companions in Skyrim.
Oh, they
Yeah,
love it.
and-
They love
and
that
it-
shit.
Yeah, and it's like so this is like reason why this werewolf transformation in Trick or Treat's like my favorite
They
one.
dig it.
'Cause
Yeah,
they're into
they
it.
totally
They
dig
love
it, and it's like it seems quick and
it's-
easy that
Because-
people
because
understand
how-
why.
How can anyone love you if you don't love yourself?
It's
yeah,
like-
exactly.
This whole thing is like a sorority initiation, but with werewolves
It's
instead.
way cooler.
Yeah.
It's like wow, this doesn't fucking suck. Every time the full moon comes on, you just snap that skin off, and next thing you know, you're.
I will say, I think all our favorite parts is the werewolf.
Full disclaimer: werewolves are my favorite monster.
Yes.
So
Werewolves
Oh,
are
wow.
fucking cool.
I love werewolves. But I like vampires.
I
like
like go
concept
ape
when
shit over every werewolf movie, even the ones that are shit, and that's most of them.
Oh really? Even like in Colony?
Yeah, he doesn't know that one.
Oh
he
really?
He doesn't watch the same YouTube. videos
Talk
we
amongst
watch.
yourselves. I'm gonna look this up.
You're gonna hate
All right,
it.
so let's go ahead and move on to the next story after all this is done. We get to see 3 new trick-or-treaters approaching yet another dark house.
We
no
actually
lights
see
on.
them earlier. They're the trick or treaters that see the woman
Okay.
in the sheet get her throat cut.
Oh yeah,
They're
you're
having a
right.
bad night.
I totally
Dude.
forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Okay, so we see those 3 trick-or-treaters coming up to the house, and then all of a sudden, they hear what is it, a growl, and then they see glowing eyes coming right at them, and they freak out.
And we
drop
just
their-
got done with the story about werewolves, so what else could it be but a werewolf?
Yeah, so they end up dropping their sacks of candy and running off, and then when we get to find out that it's what's his name,
Krieger
Krieger.
or Krieg.
Krieg.
No,
Krieg.
Krieg.
Mr.
Krieg.
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 Dude,
Okay,
if
Krieg's
Krieger from
dog
Archer
would
was
rip
in this
Thor.
show, that would be the best.
So
Oh,
Krieg,
Don't worry about where I got these body parts.
So-
He'd be down for everything.
yeah, so Krieg's dog comes out and pretty much
Dressed
swears-
in an adorable little costume.
Do you know what why this scene bugs me is because I always think of How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
That's what
with
I think
Gene
of too, with
Carrey.
Max.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
like, wow, they did that part so much better than this.
Well, I think that's literally what they're going for, because he literally is supposed to be the Scrooge of Halloween.
Yeah,
he
he is
scares
a
the
Scrooge.
kids and steals their candy. Yeah, right. Tell me about it. He is the Scrooge for Halloween, because he even kind of seems like the same kind of small
Oh, yeah.
dog. So.
Max.
He takes their candy. He goes back inside. He
Eats
sits
it like an asshole.
really shitty rundown
But
house.
I-
So you can tell this guy's life has kind of gone to shit.
But I would say that was a pretty good prank.
That was
To
pretty
get-
good prank.
Like, I mean,
And-
like, I mean, other than just snatching candy from kids, I mean, they like. It's,
And it's his particular laugh after
Yeah.
they run away that kind of cements him because he's just like, it takes their candy, goes back inside.
he's just shitty towards kids. You think?
I'm trying to think of like popular Scrooge quotes, but I'm coming up empty for some reason.
Not Scrooge. Did I say Scrooge? I meant Grinch.
You're more grave than gravy. That's my favorite Scrooge
So-
quote.
So-
Anyway, 'cause
We should
he-
cut the
we-
surplus population.
I do like
Of
that
course,
one.
we see him going through a box of photos, but we
we don't
know
see those
the
photos yet.
This
we don't
is
see
this
the
is
photos yet.
around the same time you see the old newspaper clipping for
Yep.
the Man in
Yeah,
Black.
and then of course, like he already has he grabbed a candy bar from one of the bags, and he was about to just go chill, whatever.
Watch
takes
TV.
takes a bite of the bar, and he's like, "Oh, this tastes like shit." So it's probably one of what is it?
Wilkins.
One of
Wilkins.
That'd be
Thank you.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Wilkins bar, but that's good. I mean, he checked the
You know-
candy, so he did right.
You know what's weird, or one thing that kind of bugs me.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a chemist, so I don't know. Like he poisoned the candy,
Yes.
and always check your candy. Is it supposed to smell bad or something? Like how am I supposed to check it?
You give it to somebody you don't like, and then if they die,
No.
Oh,
You
okay.
guys don't have poison tasters?
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. In this economy, man, I don't know.
Okay.
It's not a luxury thing
So-
one these days.
So Krieg hears a noise, and he looks out the window. And
Somebody
someone-
eggs his house.
Yeah, someone threw an egg right at his house.
Motherfucker.
I do kind of want to say he's
Dude,
down and
it would
watches
be-
TV before any of this happens, and you get like two of my favorite callbacks ever. He's flipping through. There's a cooking channel. There's the news like program you see earlier on in the show, and then there's one single shot from the best Scooby-Doo movie ever made, and that's Scooby-Doo: Escape from Monster Island, which turned 20 years old not too long ago.
Damn.
Yeah.
God damn.
I did
I
like
was
that movie.
5.
Yeah, right. I was pretty young too. I remember my mom got me that movie for Christmas, and I found it before Christmas even came around. So I found it in her car, and I'm like, "Oh, it's that Scooby Doo movie I wanted to watch."
Can I say that I just completely forgot again that you're younger than me?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know why
Do you-
this is so hard for me.
Fairly younger. You were 24.
Yeah.
I'm not even that
It's
younger.
like
I'm 3 years younger.
Sydney's 1 year older.
Okay, we're not talking about ages.
Well, I know
now.
you're young.
Yeah.
Than you. Let's change subjects before we get to Ron.
Yeah, thanks. You can leave that in. Okay.
I am.
So of course something's going wrong. Something's messing with Krieg.
Something
and-
happens in his backyard and he goes out with a bat.
Yes, and he hears his. Well, actually, he goes out in the backyard because he hears his
Dog.
dog barking.
Yeah, and that's
And
when
then-
he hears
and then
the
chewing
noise.
on
And then we realize what timeline we're in.
Yes, and,
And
of
then
course that's where he's.
We recreate the conversation with him and Mr. Bilkins.
Yeah.
What are you doing back there? Burying bodies?
Ha 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 ha. Blah blah blah. Da da da. Okay, so he goes back into the house, and then he hears a noise in the front yard. It's just back and forth, like somebody's
Something
playing.
spooky's afoot.
Yeah, somebody's messing with
He
him.
goes to the front door,
Door
and there's
opens
pumpkins everywhere.
everywhere. Evidently, oh shit. Go back.
What do we do?
No,
What do we forget?
No. I already
no,
said it.
it's fine.
Okay,
Fuck it, we're
okay.
doing it live.
Well, shit.
We're doing it live.
Okay.
Well, no. What I will say is it confused me because I saw
Yeah.
the pumpkins and I
I think
thought.
I was gonna say Sam probably visit Rhonda's house.
Well, no, because that's what I thought. I thought this was Rhonda's house because
No.
the pumpkins are set up in almost the same way. It's not,
It's not.
but every time I see it, I get confused.
What a twist that would be.
Well,
That would
'cause-
be.
yeah, then she's like Rhonda's daughter, or Rhonda's her daughter, or she doesn't even live there. She just showed up for Halloween and whatever.
Yeah, because if you saw the trick or treaters, it was
If-
like nothing was there. That light was off. It was just a creepy old house.
Yeah.
Why do kids do not go trick or treating in a dark house? You're gonna
No,
end
no,
up-
none of the trick or treaters have their parents with them either.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
fair. I didn't.
No,
No,
I
I
didn't
didn't
either.
either, but I'm just pointing it out. You would think
Yeah.
like one group.
Not gonna lie, my kids have always had an adult with them.
Yeah, yeah.
But me
They're gonna
growing
grow
up,
up weak.
yes,
Ed Razorblade free.
yes.
Razor
Oh
blade
yeah.
free.
So
I
of
keep bringing
course-
that up for a reason, audience.
Of course, after he sees the jack-o'-lanterns littering his yard, which looks pretty fucking awesome,
Give me alone.
you hear another noise in the back door.
Well, going up the stairs.
Well, no, you hear the door. Remember the dog flap?
Shit.
The dog flap.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh.
so he sees the dog flap or the door flap, and this is where I stopped with my notes because we're just going to keep going.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Well,
So the door flaps, and of course, yeah, somebody heads on upstairs, like little Sam.
He follows up. He follows
we
upstairs.
already
Yeah,
talked about
yeah.
Sam.
He follows upstairs.
fucking with him.
Something's making a noise in his bed, and he's like, "What the
Yeah.
fuck is this shit?" And he opens the bed covers, and there's
Well,
little
no, wait.
It's
you
a
forgot,
really,
you
it's,
forgot
it's,
something.
it's a really cool.
He makes good on his threat earlier.
He grabs the gun.
He does grab the gun.
Yes.
But
And then
There-
he sees Sam run across the.
Jesse did miss one thing that is a
Okay.
really cool fake out.
What's
You
that?
hear his dog barking at something, and then you hear his dog make a very sad dog noise. And then you go upstairs, and I don't know if this is what you're supposed to think, but I thought the dog was what was under the covers, struggling. And then you pull the blanket off, and it's a
It's a
little
little
animatronic
Thank,
hand.
You know,
thank you, producer
there is
guy, for
one-
not doing that to the dog.
There is one part of this that I do really like. It was like he tries turning on the light, but Sam quickly like swats
And
at
the
the
light
bulb.
bulb bursts.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's like
And
there.
instead, a jack-o'-lantern roars to life
Yes.
with flames,
Oh, that-
revealing trick-or-treats
Trick-or-treats.
all over the wall.
Smell my
Yes,
feet.
it's
Give
just
me something good to eat.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
the-
like that shot, because like the first time you see it, it's kind of quick, but then you see it in the background of the jack-o'-lantern engulfed in flames. It's the coolest.
and
the
of
coolest
course,
thing.
you know, Sam's fucking with him because
He stabs him in the ankle.
well, the reason is what we have to think right here is the reason Sam's fucking with him is
He's a
He's not giving up candy.
he's not doing what he's supposed to on Halloween. He's going against it.
So he gets stabbed
So-
in the ankle, falls down, and he looks back, and then
Which-
Sam peeks his head up over the bed. And
I
was
will
like, "Hey."
say,
And pops up
for
like
the
a
people
little
who have
gopher.
watched Pet Cemetery, the original, that kind of paid a little homage to me. Is like, yeah, with the slicing of the ankle.
Oh, it
thing.
reminded me of. Granted, this shows up in a lot of horror movies, but it reminded me of Evil Dead.
Okay.
So it
yeah.
happens when they walk by the walk by the door, and
Yeah.
she stabs her with the
Yep.
pencil.
Oh
So,
god.
so Sam is
Dude,
So-
Sam is standing there, and he's all like, "What the hell are you doing here?"
He's got
And
the
then
chocolate
he
bar.
gets to the chocolate bar and starts peeling the thing back, and to reveal a razor blade
A razor blade. See, they do put
in his
razor blade.
candy.
which is cool. It's a little on the nose, but this movie I like it.
Yes.
I like because it's a traditional holiday.
And
movie.
I love his reaction where he's just like, "Oh shit!" And then he starts like getting up and crawling away.
Mhm.
And then of course, like the light comes on or something, right? Like he flickers
Right.
something on,
And then he's gone.
and he's gone.
He's like,
Everything's
"Shit."
everything's back to whatever.
So he
Oh.
runs for the stairs.
Yeah.
Then he falls.
And
Yes.
he
There
falls
is-
hard.
There is candy, gumballs, stuff like that all over the stairs.
And glass.
and glass and razor
Yes,
blades.
and he
Yeah.
trips and falls and rolls down.
See, I guess I assume that the candy that he eats is just made out of glass because
Glass, it was less common than the razor blades, but glass was one of the things
Yeah.
to look out for.
Yeah.
That like happened like once in all of human history.
I don't
and then
think
never
I don't
again.
think the
But
razor
it's an
blades
urban-
ever.
I
The
think-
razor blade never
It was
happened.
the
Well,
poison,
yeah.
and
I
it
think-
was some dead to his own kid.
I think it was just one of those urban legends.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Well,
It was.
one
Yeah.
kid was poisoned, but like I said, it was his own dad
One
trying to
out
do
of
it.
Yeah,
300
I remember
million.
That. I remember
Yep.
that story. And
There's-
then
And now,
So he's getting close.
Oh God, going to California, there's a slight chance someone might accidentally give me their edible.
and that's another thing that they're trying to say for kids to watch out. This
First
year.
off, that's
Like,
never gonna happen.
Yeah, who's giving away
I
their edibles?
really hope that happens.
Yeah.
So he hits the ground hard with his hands, and he comes up and there's glass all in his
Yeah.
hands.
His
He's
hands
like,
are all
"Oh my
fucked
god!"
up.
And so he runs to the door and is having a bad time because there's so many locks.
Since
that
he's
he
a
can't-
crazy recluse guy, he's got an absurd number of
And
locks
as
on
he's
his door.
dealing with the locks, we see in the background little Sam peek his head down from the ceiling,
Yeah.
skittering across the thing like a
Yeah.
spider, and you're just like, "Oh, that's not good."
That's
then he
not good.
jumps down on him,
Yeah.
and he's all like fighting.
Spider Sam.
Spider
Snakes
does
around,
whatever.
kills a man.
Oh, that's very good.
That was pretty good.
Damn
So,
it, Tim.
so they start fighting and tackling each other, and it's on top of his head like "Ree!" screeching, and then I forget
Yeah.
how he gets to the
He-
window.
well,
love
okay,
this
you just
fight
said he ripped
scene
off the
so
sack,
much.
right?
Not
You
yet.
said it
That
really
does-
quick.
he rips the sack, but
Yeah,
he doesn't rip
rips
it off.
He rips it off, and
At
because
the
he
mouth.
shows the face when he's peering over him. He's like,
Right.
yes, and then he grabs the gun, and
But something happens
this is
before
why
where he gets
this
enough
is why I
time.
normally take notes, guys.
Yeah,
He-
there's,
he-
he
he-
gets
'cause
him away
he
long
pushes him
enough
off,
to
and
look
then-
at the
Yeah, and then-
window, and then
okay.
that's where
Runs
the
to the
Wilkins help me!
window.
Oh yeah.
And then Sam tackles
Yeah,
him.
that's right.
Then it rips. Then he shoots.
And then
There.
welcome to my least favorite part of the movie.
How
Oh,
dare
no.
you?
What
Continue.
are you talking about?
Dude, you just hurt my heart.
I love the idea behind Sam because you get a good look at his face.
He's a
And-
pumpkin.
He's
He
a
should be
pumpkin.
called Pumpkinhead more than
Yeah,
Pumpkinhead
I know.
should.
That's what I thought.
Because
too.
Pumpkinhead looks nothing like a
But
pumpkin.
I like Sam more.
I
because it's
love
so
Sam
innocent.
more.
Yeah.
But and I love what they're going for. He's got the jack-o'-lantern head, and when he gets shot, pumpkin guts fly out of his
everywhere.
body.
Yeah.
The problem is his design with the sack face is so much better.
No, I
You're-
I agree.
But you
but-
get the best of both worlds.
Yes, that's me too.
What?
I feel like if there was a Halloween demon, like I would think that it was resurrected from a
What
pumpkin somehow.
way you can get this across and have it be better is leave the mask on his head and have the tear in the mouth, because I think the tear in the mouth of the mask looks cool and threatening. Then you have the weird orange mouth.
Not gonna lie, I like.
But
his
but
face,
and then
too.
he gets shot, and while the mask is still on his head, then pumpkin goo flies out, and it could be a little more implied. I just like the design with the mask.
No,
more
no
than
I see where you're coming
I
from,
do
but
too.
like, you know,
But-
there'd be normies who would be watching this movie. It's like, oh, I don't get it. Why is he bleeding pumpkin guts? So
I
they-
don't
like,
think this
Yeah.
movie is for normies though.
that's fair.
Like
but
it's not really a super popular movie to begin with.
It's getting there.
It's
It's getting more
there.
popular.
It's getting a lot of traction.
But yes,
now.
pumpkin guts shoot off, and he even shoots his hand off.
Would you expect a sequel coming out?
Well, and you.
And it didn't
well,
make enough money at the time.
Oh,
It didn't make
enough
money.
Here's the thing: there is a sequel.
But-
He's talking about doing a sequel. It's just him getting the right script.
I
down.
wouldn't even mind
Yeah,
there being a sequel because it could fit it really well. You know.
Well, because
and-
there
and-
needs to be some
Yeah.
kind of
And
Halloween anthology.
there's
it's
a thing-
weird that there
If
isn't
they
one.
do it
And
a
there's the thing,
sequel,
Blade Runner didn't do too well, but we just got Blade Runner 2049 though.
just in case.
And that
okay.
didn't do well either.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that
I
didn't
was-
do
I was
well
getting,
either,
I was
but-
getting Blade Runner confused with Blade. I was like,
Okay.
the fuck are you talking about?
Blade did
for?
great.
I have to say something. Whoever is going to make the sequel, if you're going to make the sequel like Tales from the Hood sequel, do not make the sequel. 'Cause
I
that
think you
was
mean
garbage.
make it. no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Tales from the Hood
As
2
long-
is terrible.
As long as it has the same tone and it uses practical
Yes.
effects and no CGI like this movie did.
Please, no
Yeah,
CGI.
the tone of
Please.
something, by the way, is a really amazing thing about this movie, in my opinion, because it is teetering into that horror area, but it's also really hitting hard on like the fun angle of it. It's like, woo, Halloween,
And
we're
it's
having a
not-
good
you
time.
You
And
can
then
have
it's
fun
not
watching
like-
this movie, and that's the best
Yeah,
part.
It's not like funny. It's not trying to be like a comedy, but it's fun.
There are parts during this fight with Sam that I laughed at.
Oh yeah, because you do
Oh, yeah.
you do
Yeah.
laugh because it is lighthearted,
it's
but it's
like-
not like
It's timed to be comedic. However,
to
It's
as a
dark-
callback
it's
to
a
our
dark
first
comedy.
episode. It's not trying to
Yeah,
be a
it's a
comedy
dark
in the same
comedy.
way those two characters are in
right. It's being a
Insane.
comedy
I-
because
Insane
it's
Clown Posse, the movie.
embracing the
But
spirit.
to be honest, like this whole movie had a lot of dark comedy. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, like
Oh, yeah.
like even the lollipop going into Emma's mouth
S-
was
setting-
like cartoony.
Setting the girl
like,
down
yeah.
like after she'd been killed and just leaving her there. And
Yeah,
walking away.
exactly. There was like moments where you just get a little dark chuckle, like, huh.
See, I love this movie because it's entertaining. Like, just hands down, it's entertaining. You can say, oh, it's more comedy, or oh, it's more like horror and stuff,
right.
but it's
Yeah.
you have so much fun watching this movie. It's the same reason I watch Evil Dead like almost back to back to back. But
Yeah.
So the hand is no. We'll get,
Well,
he thinks it's dead.
I
He
will
shoots it a few times.
I will say, yeah, when he fires some shots into him, and like one thing I did notice this time around that I didn't notice for some reason the other times is when he shot his hand off, you could see that.
Seeds. And,
Well, yeah, you could see that he's actually probably built from a pumpkin. Like there's a backstory there for a pumpkin thing, which I don't need.
It's about to get
it is
Yeah.
interesting
I
because
was,
his head is clearly
yeah,
a pumpkin,
pumpkin.
but when
But I
later
think-
on when he like sticks the hand back on, it's humany flesh.
Yeah,
So it's like
the inside the
yeah,
pumpkin.
yeah. So
and I just like the effects were perfect. Like
I think
like
he even had a bone too sticking out.
So, not Wilkins, Krieg, he goes to call the police. He's like, "Help! I've been attacked!" And it's like, "Okay, so right." And then it's like, "What just happened?" You see the
the wire
cord
get
pulled,
yanked out.
and you're like, "What the hell is going on?" And then you just hear, and then he looks down, and his the razor blade in his foot, and his little hand there that's holding it. He's just like, "Ah!" It's like Ace Ventura almost. And so then he like kicks it off, and then Sam like starts standing up and like puts the hand back on, just like, and it's a good time, and it's
Cut
like,
to him going,
you gotta be fucking kidding me. And so he's like backing away, his gun's out of ammo. It's like, what's he gonna do? And Sam is just like walking towards him, takes a
him.
bite of the lollipop, and
Lollipop.
that's where he gets the razor from, and you're just like, oh shit, it's gonna be a bad time.
yeah. So he ends up, of course, like probably what I would do is close my eyes and wait for pending
He
doom.
raises his hand, stabs him, and he's screaming, ah! And then nothing happens, and he looks up, and he stabbed a little candy bar. And he
Yeah.
takes the
Chest.
candy bar.
And
But-
that little thing saved his life because he gave candy on Halloween.
no, I don't think that's why
I
Sam let
think-
him live.
I think that's why.
I think Sam let him live because, well,
He knew something was going to happen
He
later.
was going to get his comeuppance. You know,
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
because
So-
this is when you get a shot on the inside of the fireplace.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
It's
for,
worth
for
mentioning-
first he just like walks away and leaves the door. The door opens by itself.
It's
and he
worth
walks away.
mentioning that he has a big, obvious triangle-shaped scar on his face.
The same scar we saw on the bus driver in the flashback.
Ah, so,
Dun, dun, dun.
so we find out that Krieg is the bus driver.
That
that
And
son
got
of a
just to
bitch.
hammer it home, you see one of the pictures he's burning is him standing in front of the bus with all the kids in their
Kids.
Halloween costumes.
Yep.
Yeah, evidently that was a fucking blast of a day for him.
Yeah.
It's like, here, I just want one more picture so I can remember this horrific thing I did.
So the fire fades, and then we cut to like some more trick or treaters coming up to the house, and like they ring the doorbell. The door opens. He comes out in like a
He's
sling.
I
love
bandaged-
this
bandaged
scene
I
head.
love it.
so much.
I love it. The simple fact is because with him being such a Scrooge and not preparing for Halloween, you know, like the evil thing he has is peppermints, like hard candy peppermints. That's all he has.
And the candy, I assume he got from the kids
Yeah,
before.
probably.
But, so he's giving the here you go, you little
Also,
shits.
sorry, one more fun little callback at the very
That's
beginning.
why I feel like he let him live because of that candy, is because he was obeying the rules. Like he's passing out candy. He's like, now I'm not breaking the rules.
Well,
Like,
because he figures out what
Yeah.
happened, so
That's
he's
why I
like,
feel
all right, I
like-
got my second chance.
yeah.
But a fun little callback to the beginning of the movie, when the sister of the what's the werewolf's name? Anyway, her sister says, "Come, Huff, and you better let me in, or I'll huff and puff and I'll blow your house down." And the little girls that come to his house are just like three little pigs.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Damn
Damn it.
it.
You know,
Damn
it's
it,
that
Sid.
that little girl says like something that was
No,
that
I'm
was
just-
like
No, not yet.
No.
really funny. It was like, "Thanks, Mr. Krieg. Nice mummy costume." Runs off,
And
and I'm like,
and his
"Yeah."
face, he doesn't say anything at this point.
He kind of has a smile even, where he's just like.
Yeah, dude, I would be smiling at that.
And so as he does this, he watches them run off, and then he looks around to see like the neighborhood going around. And you see Rhonda with a little wagon walking
She
along.
almost gets hit by a car.
Yeah, almost gets hit by a car that's full of the werewolf
Werewolves,
sisters.
And they're all having the time of their life.
Yeah.
And then, of course, oh, did you already say Emma and them?
And then Emma and them
Yeah,
show
right,
up,
you
and,
show up.
and you
So it's
see
like
it's the
literally-
beginning of the movie.
Well, and then my favorite scene is, and it also shows that even though they weren't trying to be heroic, the werewolves' accidental heroicism don't pay off, because you see Mr. Wilkins' son
Yeah.
sitting on the table or sitting on the stoop,
Dressed in glasses.
wearing his exact clothes all the way down to the bloodstains, holding
So,
the thing.
so everything is as it should be. They're still serial
Yes.
killers. They're still werewolves. And you see Sam sitting and watching him, but then like Emma and
Of course, you know that Sam's standing there from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
with an
shows the whole thing.
unused lollipop.
Yep.
Yeah.
robot and boyfriend show up, and then the start of the movie happens, and then you
Yeah.
see Sam like look at them, look back at Krieg, and then like scamper off,
Well, no.
and then Krieg is all like, "Hey, losers."
I love it because first off, Craig just giggles and goes back and says, "Well, I love it because Sam he looks at
Yeah.
he looks at him and then he looks at his lollipop like, huh." And then walks in.
I love Sam.
Yeah, Sam is awesome. And then, of course, he shuts the door, and then,
And then
hears
doorbell.
another Door. Was it a doorbell or door knock?
Whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's
and
a noise
more
happens at the
trick-or-treaters.
doors.
opens the door, and he looks, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And it's
And
all
it's
the
all
kids.
the kids. He
And
killed
then
all
this is
eight.
where, and I love it because they don't actually see what happens in the movie.
Yeah.
But cut to
Well,
credits.
well, first
Yeah.
Dracula says trick or treat,
Yeah.
and then he's like,
and they
"Oh."
jump him, but then it kind of cuts, and it cuts to a bunch of flash images in comic book style. You still get to see him tear him apart. It's just really cool looking.
And I
artistic
yeah,
comic.
I really like that. And then of course this is the conclusion of our movie.
And the
The
credits
movie
roll.
comes to an end.
And
it has to end.
it was a great
unfortunately.
ride, and honestly, this was a very long, like us describing, because I love this movie so much. But literally, this movie is an hour and 22 minutes
Mhm.
total with credits.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's a quick sit
Yeah,
It
So-
feels like a made-for-TV movie.
in a good way.
But in
I
a good
was
way.
gonna say,
And it
this
feels
is
like a
production.
Halloween special you look forward to.
I do look forward
Yeah.
to it.
I look
every
forward
year.
to so many Halloween specials.
Exactly. I look forward to Halloween special for the
That,
regular
like,
TV show.
honestly, this is one of those movies that, like, when people either say they have never seen it, I like go ape shit, like get on it kind of thing.
Shuck it at their head.
Yes.
I
They're
like
just
I like
"Ow."
hand them my copy and
Worse
it's like
than
go.
to eat the DVD.
And of course,
Oh.
I own like so many copies of this.
I love so many things about this movie. It's a good
Yeah.
time.
Right. So we just got to the end of the movie here, and I think it's time we kind of gave our impressions first. But any final thoughts we have, we can go ahead and give. We'll go and start with Ron since he started.
Oh, are we doing final thoughts? I thought we were just gonna shoot.
We
Oh,
started off with
it-
final thoughts, but I figured if you had anything else to add that you
I
didn't
was
get a
gonna
chance to
shoot
talk
breeze.
about.
Okay.
How
Yeah.
about this? What was your favorite scene?
Werewolves.
Werewolves.
Werewolves?
I think everybody was
See,
on that because we
No,
talked.
Actually, he's
my,
different.
I
my,
love the werewolves, but
Okay.
my personal favorite, I love them all. My personal favorite is the first one with the not the first one, the one with the Mr. Wilkins and his kid.
I
I
did
think
like
that one's
my,
favorite.
my favorite is
Billy was
Sam
hilarious.
is Sam and Creed.
Sam and
All
Creed.
It's
Yeah,
different.
like at the end.
Okay, so-
like I like that.
So
I'm
we
just
are-
incredibly biased in my reasoning.
See, like,
No, that's my second
Yeah.
favorite by far. My least favorite has to be the one with the kids. I don't even hate it.
I will
It's just
say-
a little too long.
Yeah, I don't really like the
oh, I liked
kid
it.
scene all that much.
I feel like that was important because that brought this whole thing in full circle.
It does. My only complaint with that entire scene was, to me, it was like a little obvious where it was going, because it was like you knew that I knew that they were going to be like pranksters, like scaring the shit out of her, and what's the only comeuppance they can get
Oh,
after
yeah.
hearing that story?
I-
The kids turned out to be
I
real.
love this movie because, as Jesse was just saying, like, of course I know it was going to happen because it is really
Yeah.
on the nose, but it's not like. It's
No.
not it doesn't feel unoriginal and tacked on. It's more of like a celebration of all
Like
these
this is
things.
what
I-
should
that's
happen.
great.
Yeah.
See, I did realize they were setting her up and everything, but like just even me knowing what was happening, it was still a shock to see.
Was
the
it
way
even
turned out.
Yeah.
it kind of like the opposite of Scream, whereas Scream is like the breakdown of all the rules. And
This
why all the
is
rules
like
are
the
silly.
celebration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
it-
Evangelion to.
No,
Gurren
you mean
Lagann.
Gurren Lagann.
Well, no,
oh,
no. This
wait.
is like Gurren Lagann, whereas Scream is like Evangelion.
fucking hate Evangelion.
Oh, okay, we'll have a conversation.
Okay,
about
we
that
will.
later.
So, oh god, what was I gonna say? Okay, I mentioned earlier about comics, and this felt very much to me like one of those eerie or creepy series of comics where it was just like in a little anthology of stories, and that was kind of the same way. It's like where none of the like twists would ever just like blow you away. Some of them would. Some of them were good twists, but it was just like, here's a little story about a couple of assholes getting their comeuppance. That's always how the format of the stories go, and this really seems to be harkening back to that sort of thing for me.
And, oh,
I
sorry.
was saying, I wasn't gonna give like I love the idea of the family of serial killers
Uh-huh.
in the Mr. Wilkins story, because like even when he goes down to the basement and you see all of the Halloween masks lining the wall,
Mhm.
they kind of go from like because you see like classic looking devil masks that almost look like something that the kids on the bus were wearing.
Uh-huh.
And then as it pans forward, the masks get more and more modern to it looks more like stuff that you see the kids wearing in the movie. There's just lots of good stuff in that because I love subtle storytelling and callbacks,
I
and
love
that
that too.
story has
Because
like, the
I never
most.
noticed that.
That story has the most, and a lot of the storytelling in that one is so subtle that it shows up in other stories.
And I know, or I wanted to bring this up because I know Jesse brought this up before in our other podcasts, especially since now I'm re-listening to them. Is you want, because you were like, when we did the Raw episode, you were saying some like, how does this compare to other cannibal movies?
How does this compare to other Halloween movies?
Or no, not even how. What is it? What do I want to say? Like the short story kind of movie.
Oh, anthology.
Anthology. Thank you. Sorry.
Definitely one
Went
of my
blank
favorites.
there for a second. So I know
Ta-
it's
the
it's probably
first
gonna be
Tales from
top.
the Crypt is really good. No, wait. Is that?
I always
That's the
wouldn't
Tales
call-
from the
I
Crypt
would-
movie, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't call that an anthology because that was just Demon Night. Demon
Well,
Night was like just
No,
one story.
I'm thinking of the one like the first story is like this old dude dies and then comes back and he has like a cake and Leslie Nielsen is in it at some point.
Oh,
Is that Tales from the Crypt? Tales from the Dark Side?
Are you talking
It's
about
something.
Tales
I
from
think-
Dark Side?
yeah, I think
Creep
it's-
Show? I'm thinking of
Creep
Creep Show. Okay.
Yeah, and Creep Show's
Creep Show's number one for me.
I-
Which one?
Okay.
Which one's
I-
the one with James Woods? He's trying to quit smoking.
Oh,
I think
shit,
that
was-
one's my favorite.
is that
The only
Dark-
problem is
that-
they all have
No,
such
Dark-
similar
they do.
Oh,
titles,
that's not Dark Side. That's
especially those early ones.
They're designed to be the similar.
I
Yeah.
like this a lot more than Dark Side.
Or the one
I
with
the
guy-
one reason
No.
the one reason I like Dark Side so much is because Steve Buscemi in the Mummy
What about,
Cat's
story.
what about the
Eye.
one? Is that what's the one with the gargoyle?
That's
Who's the guy
that's
in that?
Dark Side too.
Yeah, is that
Yes,
is
the
that James
gargoyle.
Wood?
Hey guys,
No.
make sure you don't say no spoilers.
Of course.
Everybody dies.
Everybody- no, my favorite one is actually Cat's Eye. I think that's my favorite.
I haven't
That's a
seen
good one.
Cat's
That
Eye.
is a great one.
Is that like a separate anthology
Yes,
movie?
it's
Oh,
a
okay,
separate
I haven't
anthology
seen
movie.
that one.
The two that's because the whole point is like there's one cat who stumbles along into these different stories.
Oh,
even
that's
though
cool.
the cat has almost nothing to do with most of them. One of the ones I think it's like the middle story is like there's this guy who's kind of down on his luck and he sees this rich guy, and this rich guy's like, I'm a gambling man, and so he makes a bet, and he wins the bet, and then the bets get more and more and more intense. Until,
That does sound very familiar.
Until the
Yeah.
last one is they go up to
good.
his penthouse, and he makes him walk along the outside of the building.
I think all of these
It's called The Ledge by Stephen King's short story.
I think all of these anthology movies have just like merged together into
That's
one
the problem with
massive
the old
movie.
one, except for the really different ones
Oh,
like
and
Tales
that-
from the Hood
that's-
and Body Bags.
That James Wood, it was Cat's Eye.
Yes, that was Cat's Eye.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it was a short story by Stephen King too. It's
So
called
that's-
Quitting Incorporated.
That's my favorite one.
Okay. I will say this one outbeats every one I've ever seen, but
I
I,
really
love
love
it.
Creepshow.
I love Creepshow too, and I
This
love
one-
all. It's just this one feels
Well,
like
I'm more likely to go back and rewatch this one.
If we're
This
talking about
this
like
one's like a
horror
go-to.
anthology, I,
I just-
prefer Creepshow. If we're talking
See,
about Halloween movie,
I love
prefer
the fact
Trick or
that,
Treats.
like, what I love about this movie is the fact that he could take 5 stories and intertwine them all together. It's like, because like short stories, like, oh, I got a short story here, here, and that's it. They don't intertwine. But this one,
They weave together
They weave
perfectly,
perfectly.
and like I said at the beginning, there's no like chunky narrating device that it
Yeah.
has. The stories just go and they bleed.
That would've
very
really bogged
organic.
things
It's
down.
very organic.
Yeah, and it's like the
Yeah.
characters are kind of like paper boats, kind of like just
Floating
floating along
Hi,
in like the
Georgie.
best way possible.
The
We always
and
go
it's
back
like
to
and
it.
as much as I love narrator characters, like I love John Carpenter's character in Body Bags, and I
love that.
love Mr. Sims from Tales from the Hood. It's I
No, I agree, I
I
agree.
legitimately love that.
That was a
movie.
laugh of
Watch
agreement.
part 2 if you want to hate life.
I didn't even know there was a part 2.
They
I'm
just-
not going
it's-
to.
It's okay. What makes it bad, I think, is it was direct to video.
Oh,
Like,
that's not a good
and
sign.
it was so terrible. I watched it for free. Thank God it was free. But and I might end up owning it because I'm one of those people that like for his collection has to have all the sequels and
Even-
prequels and
Even the shitty uncle from Dead Time Stories is great.
yeah.
I fucking love that guy.
Okay, so
All he
now,
wants to do is watch the swimsuit special, and his dumb shit nephew keeps getting scared of stuff.
all
in
right,
his
so
room.
let's go ahead and go through our ratings. Me being last because it was my movie. So Sid.
All right, fine. I think I'll give this one a straight up 9 out of 10. It's one of my favorite movies. It's one of those ones that I have to watch at least once a year around this time. I'm probably gonna watch it again once Halloween actually comes, and even if I don't watch it, I'm just gonna put it on my TV while I hand out candy to kids. So I just fucking love this movie.
As for mine, could I go into a little
Yeah.
mini rant?
Yeah, you can.
I touched on it before, but I would like to really hit home on it now. Back in the days of John Carpenter's Halloween, we had the idea of a Halloween series that was going to be an anthology with Season of the Witch. It was going to be a different story every time because it's fucking Halloween. You could do so many amazing things with it. And that never came to be.
The first Halloween doesn't
people
even
are so
have anything
fucking
to do with
basic.
Halloween.
Nope.
It's like to bring back Christmas movies again. It's like It's a Wonderful Life. The fact that it's
Yeah.
Christmas doesn't matter.
And
It's
then
just
we,
that it revolves around it.
here we get Trick or Treat, a movie that does a really good job of doing an anthology of Halloween that's specific. It couldn't be set on any other night. It's awesome. Didn't do very well. Didn't make a lot of money, and it's been how many years since we've even gotten a hint of a sequel? So I have a very important question for the audience: where the fuck is the Halloween anthology series? It's built into the holiday.
They
It
tried-
doesn't- it
they
doesn't
actually-
sell.
They actually did try to make a Halloween, like based off the TV show, a Halloween anthology series like Friday the 13th, but it bombed.
And Season of the Witch would have sold if they had marketed it differently.
Yeah.
Dude,
That's
I
that's
remember-
the thing. It's like marketing is the most important thing to
Uh-huh.
a movie. Like take Scott Pilgrim versus the World
And
for
it's the thing
example.
that
It's a
gets
great
fucked up
movie,
the most.
but the
If
thing
they
is
had made
the
it-
marketing's so shitty that that movie bombs.
If they'd made it hyper clear that this has nothing to do, it's like a new tale
if-
from the directors, storytellers of Halloween.
if Season of the Witch came out this year or like this year with YouTube and stuff like that,
Uh-huh.
everyone would be more connected.
Yep.
And so
then we
they
w-
would be it would be more clear about it.
There would also be more nitpicking assholes
Yeah.
to tear
There,
down.
there will
That's what I
be,
was gonna
but
say.
at least the message would come across
like
saying,
this
"Hey,
podcast.
this, yeah."
I've
this
been
podcast.
positive,
I will
except
say
for
this.
Muckman.
I used to be, of course, I'm the oldest one here. So I have always defended part 3. Like
It's so
it's
good.
so good. But then what's weird is like I used to like yell and get in screaming matches about this movie, and then now it seems more people accept it. There's a lot more acceptance on this movie.
I think-
it's almost a cult classic now.
Well, I think when you were younger and there was less Halloween movies altogether, it would be easier to argue about. But now that we're getting our third Halloween one,
I would say like
That's
I
so
would say
true.
like I would say like when I was really
we're tired of it. I'm tired of it.
Oh, see, not me. I love it. Like honestly, Halloween 23,
The
bring
reason,
it on.
the reason I'm more excited
I
about
will-
this upcoming Halloween movie is because, to jump off of Trick or Treat, the trailers have really homed in on it being Halloween. Like, the first scene of the trailer is just entirely like, every house has jack-o'-lanterns and lights, and there are kids running around with costumes and stuff, and Michael Myers is just like, hey, what up? And I'm like, okay, that got my attention a little. The rest of the trailer's kind of meh, but that got my
I
attention.
don't know. If they really want to reboot Halloween, of course it's not going to end up this way because it's fucking Michael Myers.
Mhm.
If they are going to reboot it again, I want it to be the anthology series. I mean,
I
they're
do.
bringing what's her name?
Laurie
Yeah,
Strode.
they're bringing her back, and this
Jamie
movie,
Lee Curtis.
This movie, Jamie Lee Curtis. This movie kind of feels like it's going to be a farewell as a result.
It has to be.
I
It's
think
not going to be.
it
They're
needs
gonna
to
make.
be.
They're gonna make another remake.
You're right,
in
because
another
we've
10 or
already
15
done it
years.
to where.
They're gonna make
I-
another Halloween one. But if they do decide to continue it, I want it to be the anthology, and I don't think I'm
It
alone in
won't
thinking
happen.
Hey, remember
See,
how there was only one Purge movie, and then Blumhouse realized how much money it sold, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and
I
worse?
actually think the Purge series has kind of gotten better as it's gone on.
I-
It's
Oh,
been
really?
I'm not
weird.
gonna lie.
See,
when I,
the-
when I,
the
when
I
I-
thought the
trailers-
first one was kind of boring.
well, no, the
The
first,
first one
I
is.
Well, that's the problem with like getting the Purge now. When I first heard of the concept of the Purge, I thought we were gonna get like an amazing story of a city going Mad
Yeah,
Max
and
one night a
they
year.
don't do that at all.
And then it just
They
turns
it's just
into
a home invasion
Well, it
movie.
just turns into a
Yeah.
shitty The Strangers ripoff.
Whereas the second one does have a crazy city going into
The
chaos.
second one's great, and then after that, they get weird and political and uncomfortable for you personally to watch.
I
Yeah,
haven't-
no, I
haven't-
understand that
I
completely.
haven't seen the third
that,
one.
That's the whole reason I stopped watching after the
Have you
second one.
seen-
And
have
the
you seen
trailers,
poster for the latest one.
yes.
Yeah, that's exactly
Oh,
what I
the
mean.
first
Yeah.
Purge, that one.
and like the first Purge, they were also used that movie to promote Halloween, like the new Halloween too. It's like
Why am I going to go see
Blumhouse.
that movie? I know I'm going to be
Blumhouse
sad.
is just like a company I don't really like.
They're evil.
Blumhouse
They-
is a company that sucks that made one good movie by accident.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is what they do is they throw so many projects out that they just happen to get a few good
They
ones.
happen to get an Oscar-winning movie.
You know, in 16 Candles, when the Ron, help me out here. In 16 Candles, the girl decides to kiss like the nerd, so the nerd immediately jumps on her. That's Blumhouse.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like one good
Making
movie,
an
then he
80s,
jumps on you until you push him off.
So anyway, like I said, we need a Halloween anthology, and the fact that we don't have one is weird. And I think Trick or Treat could be a good version of that if it ever continued into
And
a
A Trick or
series.
Treat
It's re-
Netflix show would be nice.
So-
and it's really weird because
Well,
Black Mirror
that reminds
and
me,
Twilight
there is
Zone
a new
anthology series
one.
Exactly.
sells so
Horror
well.
works so well with anthology, like every single Twilight Zone episode. Boom. But anyway, my thoughts on this movie is hold it very high as a Halloween movie, almost as high as anything else, because nothing speaks Halloween to me more than this movie. And I have a great time watching it. It has awesome werewolves. I love this movie. 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
I
Where's my
complete-
Sam T-shirt? I want my Sam
8.
T-shirt.
0.5 out of 10.
8.5 out of 10. Oh,
shit.
fuck you,
I-
Jesse.
I'm sorry.
I completely forgot we were giving ratings.
Yep.
My bad.
Because I took us into a weird area. I'm sorry.
Jesse, I'm so sorry I continued taking it to the weird
Okay.
area.
No, that's
after. Okay. Yeah, I freaking love Trick or Treat so much. It's such an enjoyable film. I can't say anything new that hasn't been said about this movie. I mean, pretty much 9 out of 10. One of the reasons why I didn't want to go full 10 out of 10 was because like the kid scene, it's fine. It's just
Get out.
yeah,
Is
it's
what
Get
just,
Ron
out of
said.
here.
it's just it goes on a little bit too long for me, for my taste, but I don't know. 9 out of 10, still really high.
Okay.
I pass it on to Ron.
All right. These 9s and 8s are, man, it's like kryptonite to me.
I don't give 10s
I
unless.
will give 10s, and I will give a 10 to this one. This is 10 out of 10 for me. Like literally, like if you ask me like what's my favorite movie, this is definitely going to be one of the ones I spit out of my mouth. I like anthologies. I thought they did perfect on this. I mean it was, I mean I even like the anthologies where it doesn't like it just ends and you kind of have to make up your own like what happened. But this one didn't do it, and it still worked. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 all the way. Let's go.
Well,
Okay, and then what else do we want? Any other things we want?
I think
to say?
I'm
I think
good.
I got everything off my chest. So,
Yeah.
this would be the part of the podcast where we go through our emails and questions and suggestions that viewers pass off. Our email is mikeintheasylum4@gmail.com. That is mikeintheasylum and then the number 4@gmail.com.
How do you spell Mike?
I'm not spelling Mike, Liam.
It's
MIC.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
All right.
And also follow us on Facebook and Twitter, social media.
All right.
I would
Right.
need some more followers.
So this next week's movie is going to be decided by Jesse here.
Hi.
So let's hope that it's a good one this
I
time.
want to give a palate cleanser. I've seen this one and I actually really like it, and I've talked about it before. It's called The Void.
Oh shit!
Oh yeah. It's
Sorry,
a
I got
Netflix.
excited
Okay, wait, no,
about
it's
it.
not a Netflix film, but it is on Netflix. I don't know like stats or anything, but it's very enjoyable.
It's that
movie.
really Canadian one, isn't it?
Fuck yes, it is.
All right. Yeah, I've heard lots of good things
It-
about this
it's
one.
So good.
You're gonna like it.